Hello, how you guys doing? I know this is kind of a odd day for us to be streaming, but actually today is going to be a pretty special day. Um, we've got something that's pretty neat, something I guess we really haven't done on our stream. We're trying it out, see how it works out. Um, could be something that may we might have more of in the future, but we'll see. I know this Friday is not typically our stream day, but this is the only day that we could fit this in that worked for all the parties involved. So that's why we decided to go with this. And as you guys saw from the title, hey Audra, how you doing? And Jesse, thank you for being here. And we're doing a live. Well, I say we because I'm on the stream, but I'm actually at the house. Steve is actually on his way over to the Killy Shack, and I don't know if he's going to be popping in right now, or he's going to wait until, hey, Muppet, Jeff, how's it going? Or until he gets there, because he's actually driving right now. And I guess he was on the phone letting me know that I guess he's stuck in traffic, and it's a little bit delayed from the time that he was hoping to be there. But it's better that he gets there safely and uh, and is able to do it than not get there at all. So um, I don't know if he's going to decide to come up here while he's driving or not. In the meantime, it's my job, I guess, to entertain you guys. Um, I'll try my best to be able to do that. But yes, we are talking about killifish today, and more than anything else, we're going to show you guys a working breeding fish room. As a matter of fact, for those of you that don't know, the Killi Shack is actually a website where you can go visit, and I'll kind of share that with you guys right now while we're uh, waiting for Steve to get there. Let me see. Let me share the screen, and I'll show you a little bit about this website. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the Houston area. This is our website on the internet. I came across the Killing Shack. For those of you that are on Instagram, might recognize the name and might seen the page in the past. Um, that's where I first came across them. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize that up until a couple of days ago, uh, the Killy Shack and I have actually exchanged communications in the past because when I first obtained my my killifish, which are these right here, let me show you. I was trying to find information on the internet, and I really couldn't come across a whole lot. And that's these Aphenius mentals. And I was desperately trying to find information. This is kind of when I was newer to keeping killifish, and I forgot. I think I came across the Killy Shack on the Instagram, and I quickly saw that they were selling killifish, so I sent him a message, a DM, and he got back to me, and he actually gave me a link uh, to that one that Steve was sharing. Yes, not yesterday, our last stream where he was talking about it, and that's how I started finding out a little bit more about these fish. Obviously, this is more of a pup fish than your typical killies, but we can take a look a little bit about the killies. I'm not too diverse in this species. I'm really new still, and but I've been learning a little bit, and I know that the killifish is kind of interesting because they're kind of separated into two different categories. You have what are known as annual killies, and your annual killies is just kind of what the name implies because when they're out in the wild, these guys just really come around during the flood season when there's a lot of rain, and once the rain goes away, these um, these areas that get flooded out will eventually dry up. So what's really neat about these fish is that they've evolved to the point where they'll reach sexual maturity real quick, and in the process of doing that, are able to lay eggs. And a lot of what happens is these eggs will work themselves into the mud, and will get deep enough where they'll still be able to retain some of the moisture that was in the ground to keep the eggs from drying out, waiting for the following rain season. And that's what you have with your annuals. The other thing you're going to notice about these fish, because they have to be able to breed, the colors on these fish are very vivid. And here are some examples. Let me get you to get an opportunity to look at what some of these annual killifish look like. And as you can see, most of these fish are very, very bright, vibrant in color. Some of the colors that they have are really spectacular. And the reason for that is, like I said, they have to be able. Oh wait, looks like Steve's been able to come up here. Hey, Steve.
Yo, what's good?
Hey, not much. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Traffic, bro. Bro, people need to stop moving to Texas. I ain't even gonna lie to you. And then, this is the first time I got road rage since I've been home.
Wow. I'm not gonna say nothing because what I have to say is not cool. But
well, look, you can say it. We are the worst drivers in America because everybody brought their bullshit driving here.
No, well, here's the thing. I don't live in the city, but when I go to the city, I know that a 15-minute drive is really a 45-minute drive. So guess what I do? I always leave early. Being on time, you're late. You know that.
Look, I'm retired. I don't need to hear that bullshit. Now I'm pushing rhetoric when I got the rage. I'm just be real. Life happens.
It's just accountability.
Right now. Yeah, well, I'm accountable. I'm accountably pissed off right now. Like, it ain't nothing but Murphy. But I ain't gonna kill myself to, be on the internet. It ain't that deep.
Yeah, I know. Well, let me say hello to some of the people that have joined us. I don't know if you probably can't see the screen.
I saw you were showing the stuff and talking about annuals and perennials and what have you.
Well, I was just trying to give them a little bit of the limited information that I have. These are relatively new species of fish that I'm just still in the process of learning. And I know you're a lot more well vested in them than I am. And but I know the stuff that I've learned from going to these. Well, the only one that I've been to in my case was Sake, but you've been to Taco, and that sounds like a dinner. Sake and taco.
Yeah.
Hey, do all of these run through a food theme? Now that I think about it, all the initials were they intentionally meant to sound like food?
I mean, that's what it appears to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of sharing with them the Killi Shack's website on the internet, and I was just kind of telling them that. I didn't realize it until last week. Not last week, but the last stream that we were on. That they're the ones that pointed me into where to find information on the Aphenias mentals that I have. Remember that I was trying to find information on them, and I really was having a hard time finding a whole lot of information. Now because I was looking on YouTube, but YouTube really up until recently, I don't think I've seen too many videos on the Aphenias mentals. So I really couldn't find a whole lot of information on them until I guess Devin is the one that pointed me to the website. And after that, it took me a little while to figure it out how to navigate that website. But after tinkering with it for a while and getting sidetracked because you start looking at all the different fishes that are in this category.
Yeah.
And you get distracted by the colors and and the type, just the characteristics of the fish, and
right.
So you can go down rabbit holes for days.
No, it's funny that you bring that up because I was giving Watts shit because of these killifish.
Uh-huh.
I was like, it's your fault. because you know personally, like my whole story with killifish, turtles, and gambusia. So Watts was like, "No, bruh, it ain't on me. You can blame Jorge and them damn Mentos." And I was like, "You know what? That was the first killifish that got in the house right when I moved back." And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You know what? You got a point." Yeah. So it is your fault. But the rabbit hole is real, bro.
I know. And I know when I first came across them, it was a little bit intimidating because you start hearing all these requirements that they're supposed to have, which at the surface you think that they're very delicate fish. But if you really stop and think about it, these are some of the hardiest fish you're ever going to find because just the nature of where they're at and the lifespan that they're going to have. So they got to tolerate with a lot of stuff. And
I say that kind of carefully. They're tougher than woodpecker lips, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you do what you're supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not as delicate as far as the parameters and keeping the pHs and all that stuff. I thought they were a lot harder to keep, and I'm finding out it's not really that difficult. I mean, you can, I guess, more than anything else is when you really have to breed them, depending on whether they're saltwater killifish or hard water killifish.
Then you got mom spawners, and you got bottom spawners.
Yeah. Well, the ones that I have, I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to worry about drying out the eggs. These guys are egg scatters. Yeah. And I unlike all your other fish where, you know, like the live bears that I'm used to keeping, the guppies, the mollies, the platies and stuff like that, where they're breeding year round, these guys actually do have there are seasonal breeders, and it's more temperature driven than anything else.
Yep. Notice the rain. Always. Sorry. When it rains, the males always go to sparring. But like, if it's been like 2-3, there's got to be a couple days of rain, and then they'll go nuts.
Yeah, I've been able to catch them. When I mean catch them is on video, and I posted a couple of shorts where they're going off of each other. Unfortunately, if you keep more than one male in an aquarium with these guys, their fins are never going to look intact. They're never going to look like show quality because they do go after each other all the time. John Wilmon says that Killies are a deep rabbit hole. Yeah, they definitely are.
What I've discovered with those Mentos, running them this way, because I told you, dude, like once I got my hands on them, that was a wrap. And you told me they overwintered for you, so I already knew they were like, okay, they good, like they acclimatized to the States. So
let me bring them up so that they know as we're talking about these guys, they know what we're referring to. Let me put them on.
I've had a lot of success with them.
And the one that he has on his website, unfortunately, is not as colored up as they get. I'm trying to see if I can find. Yeah, he doesn't seem to have because the body of these guys really almost gets entirely black, like the fins you guys are seeing right here, like these fins right here. They'll get the whole body will turn that color, especially on the dominant male, and the blue spangling on it really pops. And
well, you know what I noticed is this is population, because all the ones that were at the taco look like on this picture here on the internet, and this was from multiple people across the country. We got a lot of fish from the West Coast this year, which was really cool. And the population that me and you both share a colony of, nobody has that one, bro. They're jet
no. What happens is that every time you move them, and I know this because I personally have done this, they stress out and they lose their color. But once they get put back into whatever place you're going to put them, whatever aquarium, they'll color it back up. But the problem is when you ship them or you move them, like I can tell he pulled these out of his aquarium and put them in species containers to be able to photograph them. just by moving them that short of a distance, they lose a lot of their color.
Right.
But you give it, if he would have left him there maybe 10, 15 minutes on his own and facing the aquarium so he can see the other males in there, he would have colored up and he would have been able to get the full color of them. But it's usually it'll be the dominant males that'll get that vibrant, that deep black color and that blue spangling. Most of the males, the beta males will look exactly like what you're seeing there in the picture, and that's been my experience with the ones that I have.
If y'all want to see it, I got some shorts on YouTube of like what Jorge is talking about.
Let me look them up. Go ahead and explain to them, and let me see if I can find them on your channel.
Yeah, YouTube short. Yeah, it's so they make little pockets, and what I did was I replicated as closely as possible their environment because they're a line of sight fish, and you got a lot like betas. Betas are line of sight fish. A lot of your cichlids are line of sight fish, meaning if I can see you and nothing's between us, your ass is mine. So because these guys are really I'd call them semi-aggressive. I wouldn't call them aggressive, even though they do beat shit out of you. They're just too small to be aggressive. IMO. But because of that, I love this particular tub that I got them in outside. It's loaded with, it's got a lot of wood in it too. And I noticed that helps a lot. But what the males will do is they'll make like a little dancing arena. Like they make little pockets in the weeds and they go in there and dance. And when they get to spawning, you can tell because those females will be so stressed out, they'll be hiding in the surface in the little weed pockets. And that's atypical behavior of mintos because they kind of more like to hover on the bottom, the bentho pelagic zones of the tank. They like the bottom. So you can that's kind of one of my indicators that, yeah, they're in there actively dropping eggs because those males, well, first they beat the shit out of each other. You're going to see a few like subadults or juvies dead. Like you're going to pull 2 or 3 in the main breeding season. And then you'll see those females, like I said, just up there hovering, just stressed out. But it's really cool to keep them like that. I like to rewild the fish,
Yeah.
I leave them alone. I don't mess with them, like to where it don't matter how often I throw feed, if I throw feed at all. When I come to their enclosures or whatever, they run. So like I have to earn the privilege of being able to observe them. And that just, to me, it just solidified the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I got those like that. I have a few, and I got another group of them indoors.
Yeah, I looked on your YouTube account and I couldn't find any of the shorts for these. Are you sure it's on there or on your Instagram?
I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube, but it could be on Instagram too. It's on.
All right. Well, I got the ones that I uploaded. Just the word of caution. I don't know how loud this is going to be. So if you're wearing earbuds or headphones or whatever, just kind of be be forewarned that it might be a little bit loud. I think I muted the sound on these, but yeah, I think I was able to mute the sound. But that's 2 males right there that you see. One of the alpha males, and that's not even as dark as they get. And he's gonna get challenged by another male that's in there that is also being colored up. And this is typically what you'll see where they're trying to establish dominance, and they'll go around in circles like what Steve was talking about. And there he goes. There they go. And if you notice, all the fins on these guys are a little bit tore up because they'll spend all day doing this exact behavior and that they're displaying there. I don't know how. me see if I can make this a little bit better. It's a short, so no, no. Okay, but those basically the males that we have on there. Let me remove that from there. Sorry
Hey,
about that.
do you like you live in Imperial Valley, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's we're not that far. It's I live in Arizona now, but the Imperial Valley is only a 55 miles away from where I live. So basically a 45-minute drive.
Okay. Do y'all have like them little country towns and stuff out there? Like where it's like
Yeah,
a stoplight and the damn thing don't even turn red?
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, not anymore because they've grown, but
yeah.
yes, it's the Imperial Valley is composed of Calexico. Well, the major cities. The whole valley, I think, might have the entire valley might have approximately 200,000 inhabitants. But the ones that you'll find on a map, if you look in the Imperial Valley, it will be Calexico, El Centro, Imperial, Brawley, and then you have the other smaller towns, which would be Heber, Hopeville, Sealy, and Nyland. And all these series of little towns, it's all agriculture. What separates all these towns is agricultural fields in between the two towns. But as population has increased in the Imperial Valley, um, these limits have come closer and closer. Case in point being where there used to be a distinct separation between Imperial and El Centro is no longer there. Uh, Only us that were from the Imperial Valley, if that have lived there, know where that city limit is. But if you're coming from the outside visiting in, you would never know. You would drive right from El Centro into Imperial and not even know that you switched cities until you start seeing the police cars that'll say City of Imperial or something like that. So it's basically the only thing I can equate it to that I see that it would be like LA, where you have LA, Southgate, Maywood, Huntington Beach, where you're just kind of driving in between streets and highways, and you're entering all these cities. But because you know they're there because you've lived there. But as a person from the outside coming in for the first time, you think of it all of it as LA, but LA is really just composed of a bunch of other smaller cities. While the Imperial Valley is sort of becoming like that, uh, it's the main town in the Imperial Valley is El Centro, which in Spanish means the center. So if you look on the map, it relatively is the center of our agricultural valley, and that's why it's called El Centro. And then you'll see all the little towns are kind of spread either north, south, east, or west, and it's all starting. If you look at the map and you look at all the cities, you can see where it's expanding, and you're starting to see less agricultural and more residential. And but yeah, the Imperial Valley's and I grew up there. That's where Dr. Anthony's also from, and when we grew up, it was more country. Now it's starting to become more like a little town or city. But Yuma, where I just moved out of there, it's about 45-minute drive east from there. So yes, I'm still kind of in the Imperial Valley. As a matter of fact, the county line for the Imperial County, if you look on the map and you look for the southern part of California and you look for the border of Arizona, you'll notice that what divides it is the Colorado River that runs through there. Well, right up until I guess it would be the western bank of the Colorado River is all Imperial County. And then as soon as you cross over on the bridge, you come into Yuma County, which is Arizona. So I guess what's I think is it Louisville and I think it's Kentucky and Tennessee. They have a similar thing where you cross a bridge, a waterway, and on one side of the waterway you're on one state, and the other side of the waterway you're on a different state. So it's actually a physical barrier. That's the only reason. That's what separates the Imperial Valley and I mean California in Arizona. Now, if let me see, maybe I can. I don't know. We're really getting in the weeds, and I'm really trying to buy time, to be honest, because I'm waiting for Steve to get to his location. But in the process of doing that, maybe I can show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can go to Google Maps and let me show you El Centro. And that way you guys can get more of a visual idea what it is that I'm saying. So let me share the screen. Let's see. Sure. Stop sharing that one. Share this one. And I'm sorry. I know you guys are here to learn about Killi's, but like I said, I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of trying to buy myself a little bit of time till Steve gets there, so that you guys can actually see um, the fish that are being kept in there. Okay, so this is. I'm gonna back out so you can see. Can you go back up? How come it's not showing me? Okay, let's see if I can see show imagery. No, nope, that's not what I. Okay, this I'm used to using this on the phone. Terrains.
You have your coffee already, baby? You want coffee?
No, thank you. Traffic. I'm trying to see what this one doesn't. I can't see the state lines as well. But anyways, all right. So this is the Imperial Valley in here, where it says El Centro, Bra Lake, Mexico. Mexicali is. This is. I know I've talked in the past about living in Mexicali and crossing the border to go work in the States. Well, you can see, and this is what I've always said, I think this is the only border situation where you're going to come across where the city in Mexico is much larger than the city in the United States. All these little towns in here, Brawley, Imperial, El Centro, Heber, Calexico, Hoville, Sealy, compose what is known as the Imperial Valley. And if you notice, all this green area is all the agricultural stuff. And as we get closer, you start seeing where some of these lines are no longer distinguishable. Like for example, Imperial and El Centro, it's all becoming, um, it's all construction. All these little green squares is all agricultural. So you can see that on the satellite image, this is all desert. It's all desert. The only reason this exists here is from the water from the Colorado River that comes along this almost where you see the Interstate 8. There's a canal system called the All American Canal, which diverts water from the Colorado River into this valley. Talking about many years ago, this all used to be underwater. Uh, Basically, from out here is the Sea of Cortez. All of this in here, all the way up to the Salton Sea, all this area in here was actually underwater, millions of years ago. Um, but as the silt, it started to build out here on the delta, it impeded this water from coming into the valley. And that's the only reason we're not underwater. But if we were to have a good earthquake from the San Andreas fault, it could potentially um, break the barrier, the silt from the Colorado River that is built up in this area, and start allowing the water to flood back in. Obviously, that would have to be something very, very radical. You're talking about a serious earthquake. We've already had a 7 point something a few years back, but it would actually have to be something stronger than that. But I don't know how well you guys can see this here, but I want to put in relation as to where I currently reside, which this is over here, Yuma, Arizona, this area here. And as you can see, it's only 55 miles from this point back up to the Imperial Valley. Let me see. Yeah. And let's see, it's interested in, yeah, the Killi Shack. I haven't read any of the questions. I want to say a couple of hellos. I know some people have come in. I want to say hello to Red Laser. thank you for being here. And then Nano, the aquarium guy, Jay, thank you. Orchids and Endlers, thank you for being here with us. Let's see. Muppet, thank you. John, thanks for being here. I know we're supposed to be talking about Killies, but we will. Trust me. I'm just, like I said, you guys heard Steve's on the road and he's trying to get there. Fish Fam Link, thank you. For those of you that are on the gram, on the Instagram, and are trying to find out where some of the live streams are happening, I recommend you guys go visit this link, Fish Fam Link, and they have in there like a calendar set up for all the content creators that do fish, and with a lot of the times and dates that they're streaming. So if you are interested in following some other people, that's a good source to be able to go in there and look. Sarah, Sketty Sarah, thank you for being here. Hey, Jesse, Salient Aquatics, thanks for dropping by. Fish Streams, thank you. You're lurking. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it's not a typical day that we normally stream, but this was kind of a unique opportunity for Steve and I. Tommy, thank you for being here. Silver Creek, and we wanted to share this with you guys. I know there's some issues when you try to go live and try to do some things. Sometimes there's a little bit of hiccups, and that's kind of what's going on now. But kind of going back to the area that I'm from, and I'm trying to remember why Steve wanted me to talk about this, but anyways, that's kind of the geographical area where we're at. I was trying to find out exactly why he wanted to know how far it was from the Imperial Valley. What's kind of interesting though, because the Colorado River does, and this is right here where it says Martinez Lake. This is the Colorado River, and we're pretty much at the end of it before it goes into Mexico. You can see where it says California and Arizona. That's literally the river dividing us. And as you come into Yuma, there is a bridge that what is this called? It is the gateway to the Pacific. I think it's what the name of the bridge is, and that runs right through here. This is where it says the Yuma Territorial State Prison. That's where you have that bridge, and that's the separation. You can see where California and Arizona are at, but it's all agricultural. Right here is the Colorado River coming in to its last leg, and then it dumps literally right into here into Mexico. This is the last. That's actually Mexico in here, Morelos Dam. The international border is right there. So I am surrounded by California, and then Mexico to the south, and obviously my state, which is Arizona now. But that's kind of the geographical area. Well, anyways, I work on the Colorado River, and what's kind of cool of where I've been working is I've had an opportunity, and I put up a couple of videos, and I'm going to try to see if I can show you this. This is Las Laguna Dam. So you see all these waterways in here? This is all basically seepage that happens from the main river. This is the dam where I work at in here. I mean, and if you follow me on Instagram, periodically I'll stand right here where you see this little pine tree, and I'll film videos off of there. Areas that have burned. I know I've showed a big old fire that happened that was right here in this area. If you go back to the video where it's a short, I think that I uploaded, or a short video talking about the Imperial Dam being on fire. All of this acreage here burned, and periodically it'll happen. But if you can see all these little waterways, well, they all have drainage. And what's cool about these sites, like in here where you're seeing all this water that kind of seeps out in here, well, these create these little waterways. And lately I've been exploring out here in these little waterways, and I've been able to collect some pretty cool fish. I've been able to get some gambusia that was caught out there in the wild. I've got some wild type mollies that I've already got the first generation F1s of the wild mollies. And what else did I get out from out there? That, the gambusia, and I think there's some top minnows, but I haven't been able to identify them because they were still kind of small, and the coloration wasn't coming through. But that's if you've seen a couple of my latest videos where I'm out there wandering around the waterways and stuff like that, this is where I'm at. It's where I work at. Uh, and all these in here, you'll see um, like these little channels in here. That's all water that kind of seeps from the main river. The main river is here where it gets diverted by the dam. This is the dam that we operate, that we're responsible for operating, and it divides water into three different areas. We have to manage. This is the water that is going down to Mexico. They have a treaty with Mexico. This is the one that diverts the water to the Imperial Valley, and then right over here on the other side is this one right here goes to the county of Yuma. So these three dams are the ones that we operate. When I tell you guys I'm lurking at work, really it's just me sitting in a room and looking at monitors and levels and stuff like that, and controlling the water that we're supposed to be sending to these areas. Let me see if Steve's not back on. But that was a whole. Why did we go on that tangent? Just to kind of show you guys a little bit of where I've been able to get some wild type fish. Lately, well, as you guys all know, my it's buffering. Am I still buffering, or is it Steve? But the comment was done at 10:29, so it might have been a little while ago. So, I've been keeping live bears in my fish room for a while. So one of the things that I'm looking at now is I'm really finding interesting all these wild type fish, and it's kind of like slowly been converting some. You said your home. Not well. Yes and no, because like I said, I live in Yuma, so this gate right in here that delivers the water to our county, and then that water gets taken up by the water treatment facilities, and and well, it's not the water treatment because the water treatment is for wastewater, but for the city water, and they'll put the chemicals, put the chlorine and all that stuff in it, and then distribute it, pump it out to the residential areas. Uh, but out here, it's interesting because people will ask you, "Are you on city water or are you on county water?" And what they're referring to that is people that live out in the county outside of the city limits, they get the raw water. Basically, they're getting this water that's coming from the Colorado River. No chemicals, no nothing. Whatever's in that water is what they're getting. And a lot of that water gets used for agriculture. And if you're in a residence, one of the requirements is that you have a contract with a water provider so that you're not drinking that water because it's not safe to drink. And that's a way for them to make sure that you don't get sick. And really it's for legal purposes. They're not trying to get sued. But but yeah, it's a recreational. This whole dam, this reservoir in here, um, people come out from all over the place to come out here and spend the weekend. Out here, there's a little resort called the Hidden Shores, and these I guess are like little timeshare properties, and it gives them access. They can spend the weekend here and gives them access to recreate on the lake. But our building where I physically work is actually that little structure right here. Um, Let me see if I can get in there. Yeah, it's this little building in here, and that's where we control everything that's there. A lot of it is we do have cameras throughout the entire site because we have to be able to see what's going on. Most of our cameras are pointed towards seeing the gates because we can't physically see them from the control room. We have gauges that'll tell us how much supposedly they opened and how much water is flowing through them, but there's no way to tell on the system. So they've installed a series of cameras that allows you to see if that gate actually moved, and be able to so when you make an adjustment, and it really becomes more noticeable if you're really trying to shut off a gate or open a new gate, and you want to make sure that there's water flowing through there. And uh, these right here don't generate power, but we do have another one that are kind of along the way that are actually power producers. And here, what happens is these are called desilting beds, and what happens is a lot of this water, especially down here in our area, has a lot of silt and dirt, and it's all stuff that is coming up. You know, the dirt that's missing in the Grand Canyon. Well, it's down here. Over years and years of erosion, all that has worked its way down into the Imperial Valley. Hence why the soil down here, even though it's arid, is fertile. And that's because it's all those that soil over years and years that has worked its way down here. And what happens in these, you see these little channels, the water's coming straight from the Colorado River, and then they divert it into these little lakes, and it's slow moving water in here. And anybody that's worked at a treatment facility will recognize these as being settling ponds. So what they're doing is, because they slow down the water, they allow a lot of the heavier particulates to drop down to the bottom of the pond, and that gets collected and gets pushed out. Uh, it's a interesting. You see all this water that's coming under here. There's pipes that'll push all that silt, and that's why you see all that sand and dirt that's being built up right there. Is because that's all this right here is all that sand and silt that they're trying to move out of that water, so that when it gets going down further down into the Imperial Valley, see all these edges right here is all that buildup of all that sand. And then once it goes through this process, it'll go down these little channels. And this is supposed to be a little bit cleaner as far as not having that much mud and stuff in the water. But, it's all relative to what you're wanting to, what you're considering clean. But if they didn't do that, because the channels that they use to get the water down to the other towns are a lot smaller compared to the river, they would get saturated a lot quicker, and you wouldn't be able to move as much water, and there's a lot of maintenance that has to happen to that. So, but that's, you guys weren't here for the talk on the dam. I'm wondering what happened to Steve, because he hasn't sent me. Let me see if he sent me a message on on the phone. Let me see if he is there. But okay, let me go back and show you guys a little bit of the website. Well, like I was saying, uh, there are um, two types. Well, there's, I guess, two categories of Killies. You have your annuals, and then you have your non-annuals. The ones that we've been talking about, the Aphenius mentos, those are non-annuals. What that means is that they don't, the waterways that they live in don't necessarily go dry, so they can actually live a little bit longer, and be able to keep them more like a lifespan of a betta, uh, roughly. Hey Eddie, thanks for being here. So let me show you what the annuals look like. I mean the non-annuals, which is not very different. They're still very colorful um, species of fish. But the difference is that these guys live in areas that don't dry out. And these and they tend to live a little bit longer when they're kept in aquariums. Annuals, believe it or not, even though they're out in the wild, will only last about a year. I've heard they can almost last 2.5 years when kept in captivity. Annuals, you can get a little bit longer out of them. I know mine. the ones that I have, I've already had them for about a year and a half. Obviously, I've had fry from them. At this point, I don't know which ones are the fries and which are the original adults. But they do. They breed. They're so prolific when it comes to breeding. They breed so many fry that my colony has grown. I started out with 6, and I from those 6, it's allowed me to share them with Steve and with Jeff. I forgot who else got some. I think Hank, Big Tank Hank, was also able to get a few of those. And so, what I like about Killies in the Killi community is that because these fish are not as common, and most of the people that really get into these fish are kind of gone from the point of just keeping. I guess they go a little bit further into the hobby where they want to become breeders. They want to um, be able to keep some of these rare fish because I think I'm in that transition personally right now, where even though I still like my mollies, I still like my platies and my guppies, I've started to find other live bears, what they call the rare live bears. And let's see, I don't know what vibe is having, but I had. Oh, okay. I guess we're talking about lunch. Yeah, it is lunchtime for a lot of you guys. Um, I'm finding an attraction for the rare live bears, like the Goodyeats and stuff like that. And I'm working on trying to get some of these species. They're a little bit harder to come by than I was expecting. Um, I know I can get them shipped, but what I am a little bit hesitant is because all the breeders that I've found that are carrying some of these Goodyeats are all in the East Coast. And their weather right now is very different than ours. Even though it's hot, it doesn't get as hot as it does down here, and it's not as dry. So when it comes to shipping fish, I really don't like shipping stuff in this time of the year because I run the risk that they might sit on my front door for too long and I will bake them. So I'm waiting till right around maybe the end of September, October for sure that the weather down here will be in the lower 90s, which I'm not too concerned because then the temperature inside the box won't increase. Like right now, um, it is 10:47 out here, and we're already at 90 degrees. Um, and it's not even midday. Our predicted oh, that's sorry, I'm looking at the wrong weather. I was looking at Sedona because I was thinking about going to Sedona over the weekend. We're at 100 degrees. We're at 100 degrees right now. Our high for today is not going to be too bad. Believe it or not, we're only going to be 103. So that's actually not a bad summer day. But we're coming towards, I guess, on the other side of our summer. So the
I'm
weather
alive for
will.
what it's worth. Give me a few seconds and we can start the show.
All right, Steve.
All right.
Are you actually there at the Killi Shack now?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Give me a few seconds and we'll start the show.
All right.
All right.
All right. So you guys are finally you won't have to hear me ramble on and try to come up with stuff to talk about. And because I know most of you really want to see the Killi fish. 103 is not. Yeah, it's not bad out here for a summer day. And I know there's all this contention whether it's dry heat or humidity. I'm gonna tell you, from somebody who's lived in both, um, I'll take this dry heat anytime. And the reason being because with dry heat, you can get a swamp cooler and it'll cool down the temperature because there's no moisture in the air and you're already putting moisture through the swamp cooler. It actually feels nice. I've been in Georgia this time of the year, and there ain't, unless you have air conditioning, which is actually going to dehumidify the air the way it operates, there's no cooling off. And I don't care if you run a fan, I don't care what you run. If it's not AC, it is not going to cool off. And that really, and I remember in Georgia, we weren't that hot. It was only like 89 degrees, where if you think about it down here, that's a nice little fall day for us. But the humidity was almost like 90 something. So I still, I think I have a little bit of PTSD because I remember I was never dry when I was in Georgia. I never, the whole summer long, I was always sweating. And there's nothing worse than sitting down to relax and be drenched in sweat without any effort. I don't know how you guys do that in the East Coast, but I tip my hat to you guys, because if that was the case over here, I'd be in a bad mood all the time. Uh, but luckily for us, uh, if you have a, if you, we have everything down here though does run AC. There's not, you're not going to go anywhere in this region of the country and not come across AC. All the stores, all the malls, all the centers, all the shopping centers, they all run AC. And there's no such thing as AC being an option in your car. That's like mandatory. Yeah, it's like hitting the wall when you. Yeah, I know, and it's so crazy. Unless people have experienced humidity, it almost feels like really, well, it is really thick air to try to breathe. And it feels a little bit suffocating when you come from a place that's really dry and you all of a sudden get exposed to that humidity. You have a hard time adjusting to be able to breathe that air. It almost seems like you need a, a respirator to be able to be able to take a breath and get some air in your lungs. Yeah, I don't miss the humidity of the South. Yeah, anybody that's been in that deals with that and comes out here, yeah, it's hot. Don't get me wrong. You walk out there and the sun beats on your skin and it hurts. I mean, there's days where it's like, good, but you can get in your car and then drive off, and then it'll start cooling off, and you'll be all right. Um, but yeah, it's just different things. Everything you touch out here will burn. uh, our door face is a west facing door, and that doorknob around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I can't touch it. You gotta use a glove or something else, but you're not gonna go up there and grab the door because it's gonna burn the hell out of you. And frying eggs in a frying pan out here is not a joke. That's not make believe. That's not cap, as the kids call it. That is real. Um, One of the worst things that could happen is you getting slammed against the hood of a black car out here in the summer. Oh, you don't want that to happen. Time to bake cookies in your car. You can, well, yeah, you can. The problem is that sometimes not only cookies get baked in the car. That's why they have these big campaigns down here, uh, where they really push that you really watch out that you're not leaving any pets or kids in the back seat of your car. The whole kid things I never understood why people would forget in the first place, but unfortunately it does happen out here, and it seems like every year we have a situation where a child, for reasons beyond me, I can't understand, were left in the car, and it never works out well. And I just never been able to figure out. Yeah, you have people that get third. Yep, and this is so true. This is not a joke. The asphalt down here. I know I was talking on Dr. Anthony's stream. I was talking about the fact that you can come out here, whether it's Phoenix, Yuma, El Centro, all this desert region, Tucson, same boat. That asphalt absorbs all that radiating heat during the day, that you can come out at night, late at night. Well, would be late for most people, like around midnight, and it's not uncommon that the radiating heat off the ground is about 100 degrees. It's just, but you just kind of learn how to deal with it. I wonder what happened to Steve. Hey, Dee Dee, how you doing? Thanks for coming in. Who else did I see sneak in here? I said hi to Eddie. Um, Happy Friday. Yes, happy Friday. Fish Streams, thank you for being here. Oh, Coral. That's what it was. How you doing, Coral? Thanks for dropping in. Um, I'm just kind of stalling because I'm waiting for Steve to be able to get set up and finally get that stream. And we've been in what? Oh shit, almost an hour. And I've just been teasing you guys. I'm like the worst tease. I've been keeping dangling these killie fish in front of you guys, and really don't show them. But I'm telling you, it'll be well worth the wait. Um, why you send me a voicemail? Let me see. Give me a second. Let me see what Steve. Sorry about the dead air. Okay, yeah, he's in there. They're actually headed to the fish room. Um, but I believe this is the 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 store or the yeah, the website store is called the Killi Shack. And the owner of this, if I'm not mistaken, his name's Devin Espinosa. From what I've heard Steve mention it, but I'm sure he'll introduce him. And he'll probably give you guys a little bit of background as to how he came across this gentleman. Like I said, my interaction, unbeknownst to me, with the Killy Shack had happened maybe about a year and a half ago. Thank you, Jay, for dropping the link for them. He also has a YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I think in here in his page, I know he has an Instagram for sure. No, he only has Instagram and the website. I must be thinking of, yeah, definitely thinking of somebody else that had a YouTube channel, but they also have a store. Um, maybe that's something we can convince Devin to do, is to put up start working on his YouTube presence. Uh, but come on. Oh, don't want to do that. I'm starting to push buttons. I don't want to lose you guys. So let's see. No, he's not up yet. Well, anyways, like I said, that's just a little bit of what I know about killifish. I know they're broken down into two separate categories: your annuals and your non-annuals. Fortunately, I was always uh, reluctant to try to keep annuals because one, I thought I was not going to be able to breed them. Coral got put out in timeout. That's no problem. He'll be back in. That's funny. I know what that's like. That's happened to me in the past in other streams. Um, just glad to see I'm not the only one that it ever happens to. I don't know how. Milner. Oh, okay. She's talking to Sarah. Uh, I was always kind of hesitant. I've always was kind of reluctant to try to keep annuals, and that's because I was thinking, I'm not going to get these fish to be able to breed, and it seemed like it was like very complicated when it came to pulling the eggs, because with a lot of these annuals, the way you do the breeding setups, you got to provide them a place that would simulate dirt so that they can lay the eggs in there. And then you would have to take that out. And a lot of the times, what I've seen that people use is peat moss, and and they'll put it like in a little deli cup or a little container at the bottom of the, excuse me, at the aquarium. And the idea is that the fish are going to see this and they're going to spawn right above that. They'll drop the eggs into this substrate, and then you can pull that out. And then there's a process to be able to store these eggs because they do have to go through a dry period. And that's why a lot of people will say annuals are not for beginners, because you have to deal with that situation. It is a little bit more challenging because there's a little bit more knowledge and experience that you need to have. And you're supposed to take that media out, dry it out where it's not saturated, but it's still supposed to retain some of that moisture. And then you're going to, one of the things you definitely want to do is, especially if you have several breeding pairs, is you want to write the data collection and the time that you stored them, because you got to give it a certain amount of months that they have to go through this dry period that is simulated, so that when you reintroduce that whole container back into an aquarium, it'll allow the eggs to hatch. So that's why they're so fascinating, because of this unique breeding, not breeding, but reproduction process that you have to put them through. And then, from my understanding, and I haven't, like I said, I've kind of been hesitant to keep annuals because I'm not sure I'm ready for that because of the work that it requires. You put them in the water, and you got sometimes they won't all hash. Uh, you know what? Killies is comes from Jason. I mean, sorry, Funk is asking why they're called Killies. Killies is a Dutch word, and if I've learned this correctly, waterways in the Netherlands are called Killies or Killiways because it was a lot of the Dutch colonizers that were coming to these regions of Africa and South America because Killies are spread out throughout the entire world, but predominantly the ones that we see a lot of them today are from the African continent, and because a lot of the Dutch were out in these waves, they were the ones that discovered these fish, and um, there's actually a good explanation, but I know the word killie means waterway, and that's why they're called killifish. When I first saw that, I thought it had something to do with aggression because that's what when you're not familiar with the species and you see killifish, you're thinking, wow, these guys must be real mean, but they're not. Uh, they're not, and they're actually very very nice fish. I wish Steve would hurry up. But yeah, that's why they're called Killi. And I know there's where was it that I was looking? There's a website where I was reading all that information. But unlike Steve, I don't have a computer memory. Mine is old, like the old type paper and pen that I got to be able to write stuff down and remember. So yeah, well, and there are some. Well, I know there are some because I have the mentals. They can be pretty mean to each other, uh, and they can go after each other. I know I am currently keeping them in a 55-gallon, which is entirely dedicated to them. And like Steve said, I have a lot of driftwood in there. I build up big rock piles to try to give them areas for them to hide out. You know, like little caves and stuff like that, and giving them options to be able to hide out.
All
Hey,
right, all
Steve,
right.
are
So
we? Let me stop sharing this screen so that we
no,
can.
hold on. Go keep
Okay.
doing what you're doing.
Okay.
We're gonna do the tour,
All right.
and then I'm gonna let Mr. Espinosa talk his talk about Killies.
Oh,
So
good.
y'all in for a treat. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I was not trying to die to give you guys this, but I am a real one. So give me a second. I'm gonna turn on the flip phone and start walking around and giving the tour.
All right.
You got it, George.
Okay. So after an hour of waiting, you guys finally get to see these fish. Like I said, yeah,
Do they
the
have a
thing is,
middle finger emoji?
yeah, if I had it at hand, I'd put it up for you. I know he's been a tease all day, saying that he's gonna show you guys something, and he hasn't yet. So, but hopefully it'll definitely be worth the wait. Um, I'm as excited as you guys are because I've the only killie fish I've seen have been on pictures and some videos, but it'll be interesting to see a actual fish room and uh, and function and hear what information the what firsthand information the breeder can provide for us. And if I'm not mistaken, at the event that Steve went to, I believe Devin was a guest speaker. Am I mistaken with that, Steve? Well, he'll tell us right now. But I think he was one of the featured speakers at the Texas area Killy organization event. and he's been able to figure out how to breed a very particular species. I think it's a species that has been pretty hard for a lot of the killifish keepers to be able to breed, and he's figured out a way how to do that. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what his talk was on, was kind of going over the details of how he has successfully been able to breed these killifish. Um, I know Steve gave me the name of them. I'm not gonna. I don't remember what they were called, especially because they use a lot of the scientific names, and I'm horrible with that. I'm more of a common name kind of fish keeper. You know, you call them mollies, you call them platies, and I know what you're talking about. But I guess what is it, Tommy Middlefinger? Just reading between the lines. Yeah. So we're waiting on you, Steve. Whenever you're ready. You're worse than waiting on a date to go out, taking you forever to get ready. But anyways, yeah. So I know tomorrow we're going to be having our live stream also. This is not our our Saturday stream, obviously, because we're on a Friday. And like I was explaining to the people that were here earlier, it just happened that we all happened to coincide on this day and time to be able to do this. There we go. All right.
All right, so we got Devin Espinosa, the homie and the owner of the Killi Shack. Thank you for putting up with all this and having me here, bro.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to share all my nonsense with you.
Hey, well, have at it. Without further ado, let's get to the fish. Where do you want to start?
So right here.
All right.
So this rack is predominantly Nothobrachus killifish,
Okay.
with a spattering of Epicemian and Epiplatus. And most of these are just, or all these are just 5 gallons.
Okay.
And it's primarily a breeding setup with 1 or 2 males and a whole smattering of females. I find that they do vastly better in
with the ratio.
Yeah, with a low male ratio and extremely high female ratio. The females don't get as pressed as if you do a 1-to-1, which is what you normally buy them as, or even a trio. And I find that the female one produces a lot more eggs and they grow better as well. Because a lot of times if you have just a 1-to-1 ratio, the female will only get about half the size as they normally will and end up dying, which is really sad.
Yeah.
And you get less eggs, less quality eggs, and you know.
So when you do that, do you, since you're going with the low male to female ratio, do you try to select better quality?
Oh, definitely.
Obviously.
Yeah. So with the females, like it's literally just based off of shape and you know, skeletal structure. Like of course you don't want to fish with a bent spine or anything like that.
Right.
But with the males, that's where you really select for color and pattern. Like there's been several cases where like a male looks beautiful, right? To someone who didn't know, the male would be a picture of what the species is, but there's a single slight difference. Like a good example is the Egger's eye.
Okay.
So normally, which is right here on this rack right here.
Mm-hmm.
So so normally they have red pigment on their fins, and at the tips they have a light bluish and sometimes white pigment. And occasionally you'll get a male that is missing that pigment entirely on a fin. And while it's still a beautiful fish, that's not like a cruder quality fish because it's missing that pigment. And you don't want that to progress through the line, so you try to remove that as soon as possible.
Makes sense.
And a fish like that is a great killifish, as is, but that's one that I would, take to a pet shop or.
Right, you wouldn't want the progeny in your line.
Yeah. Exactly.
And can you explain why? Because show.
Yeah, for the show, like we just had TACO, Texas Area Killifish Organization, a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week before?
I don't even know, man. Traumatized.
No, I know. That's exactly.
I really believe it was last weekend, G. Wait, no.
It was the
weekend before.
16th.
Yeah.
But like stuff like that gets noticed by people who know. And
right.
So that's several points deducted, if not, a large amount of points deducted, especially when you have nicer fish in going against it. So stuff like that really does matter when you're trying to breed quality fish.
Right, and it's not a personal attack. It's
Absolutely.
to keep the species intact, number one. And it's almost like we're being stewards of the species by making sure the best quality specimens pass their genetics on.
Exactly. And so, like, if I were to like put like a fish like that up on Aquabid, and I were to receive something like that,
right,
I would be insulted.
Right.
So like that's why a lot of those fish just go to pet stores because want to sell them wholesale.
Right.
Stores, and it's once again a good introductory fish.
It makes sense.
To start out with. So.
Okay, so like the conception is at Noto, so your annuals, they're difficult, they're hard.
I honestly find that annuals, whether it's South American or African annuals,
right,
are the easiest ones to deal with because they don't require you to go through each individual mop,
right,
and pick the eggs. And as you can see in the containers, there's just little cups of peat, and all it requires for you is to reach your hand in there and grab it out, and squeeze out the water and store it in a bag. It takes less than 5 minutes per tank. While with the mops, you have to squeeze them out, then set them on top of the tank, which I do wrapped in a towel, and essentially let the eggs set. So if you have any fresh ones, they're more
hydrated.
Not hydrated, but sturdy. Like
gotcha.
Like the egg sac isn't as brittle.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
okay,
and that takes 20 to 30 minutes for that to happen. And of course, you're going through each individual tank, and that takes time. Like I had to set aside a whole day to go through each individual tank.
Oh wow!
For my episimians and fungal pan checks.
And y'all just look at. He said every single tank. We're gonna get to it, but every single one. This is one rack. So.
And that's not including the ones outside.
And and ain't even that's not even the stuff outside. So. Back on the breeding, because I know everybody really, really wants to. So what me and Jorge do is, like I told you, we promote substance on the show, and we both old heads. We cheap, we practical, we veterans, we no nonsense. And instead of arguing about it with the kids, we just gonna show you how to do it and tell you to shut up. No, it's like this. And like, stop all that nonsense. The negativity ain't required. Look, this is how you do it. It's not personal. It's just the way.
Yeah.
So, like, can you kind of explain to the people the simplicity of the setup? Because there's a lot of misflow on there and it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And I set it up there when I'm going to show them your rig.
Yeah. Yeah, so like the internet does put out a lot of misinformation. Like, for example, like it says that killifish only will live for a couple months, and while there are several species that will only live for 3-4 months,
right,
there's a whole variety out there that doesn't.
Right.
Especially even within Northos, which is primarily where that comes from. But yeah, and back to the idea of being cheap about it. Like all these containers are deli containers that I buy because I love cheese. We cook Italian food a lot, so there's
damn,
a lot
in the bougie kind too.
Yeah. Well, most of those were bought on discount.
With the yellow sticker on it,
bruh. So if I use it, cool. If I don't use it, hey, I got
bruh, cheese don't go bad.
Exactly.
Scrape you got to scrape the stuff out. But look at these. Like he just repurposing
like those are old
containers. The gelato, I know because I be getting that shit too on DoorDash. Yeah. Then these are mop spawners down here, y'all.
Yeah, those are episimian or chromium episimian.
So I mean, just the simplicity of it.
Yeah, and like all the tanks I get off of like Facebook Marketplace, and of course sometimes you get some duds that have some cracks, but you always test them outside first. Like these tanks probably spent like $5 on. There's no reason to go to Petco or Pet Supplies Plus and spend $15 on a tank because they don't do dollar per gallon sales anymore.
No.
So.
And you can blame social media for that.
Yeah.
You can blame social media for that.
That's for sure. And like the sponge filters, like you don't need a hang on the back filter for these tanks whatsoever. There's been plenty of cases where I've raised every species of killies just in a tank without any like aeration.
Right. I'm doing that right now with my Killi colony.
Yep. So, and the sponge filters I get 4 of them for $12 off of Amazon, cheap as dirt, no issue, and they work beautifully.
Check it out. Just a regular sponge filter. Get up. And I mean, it's the simplicity of it. And I think this is what the people need to see to say,
Yeah, and of course
it ain't that deep.
And the tanks don't need to be spotless. Like as you can see, like a lot of my tanks look dirty and whatnot, but the water's clean, and that's all that matters. Like,
Right.
I have several tanks off to your left that look incredibly dirty. Like there's algae on the sides, there's plants floating in all crazy directions. But in my opinion, that is closer to nature,
right,
than just a glass box filled with water,
right,
and a couple pieces of driftwood.
And then too, you're running a business. This is a commercial breeding setting, and well, it goes to what we like isn't necessarily the best for the fish.
Exactly. Like all the algae pulls, nitrates and nitrites from the water.
Right.
And so it has a purpose, even though it doesn't look the best. But
I mean, like, look at these guys. These are the Gunther, yeah?
Yep.
And just look at them, y'all.
Yep, and so like that tank is essentially a colony, but it's fry that I hatched out like 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw them all in there, and they're doing beautifully. And at this point, I can see which ones I want to keep,
right,
which ones I don't want to keep, and I can fine tune which males that are going to be furthering the line.
Right. Like look at this fella right here, y'all. I mean, I'm trying. I'm gonna hold the camera still. He'll come to me.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, one thing about Killi fish are they do have the personality of cichlids. All of them they're micro predators, so they're curious by nature.
Yeah.
So on to the next one. What you got? I'm following you.
I have some beautiful epiplatus over here.
Okay.
Like these, and these, and these.
I ain't gonna lie. I like you. We already talked about that. These are one of my. They like little torpedoes, man. Look at them. The Monroviers are awesome, bro. These are the Gardneri.
Yep.
Okay, and then call off some of the species so the people can.
My Latin is poor, but this is Epiplatus Oldbergs. It's written right here.
Oh, well, he'll let me do it. Now, it's Epiplatus Oldbergs, Cesos River. So, where'd these come from?
They came from Africa. I honestly don't remember what country, but that collection point is a relatively new collection point.
Cool.
And they get rather massive for a killifish. You see that male in the top right corner.
Mm-hmm.
He's about 3 to 4 inches right now.
Yeah, we saw some at the auction. That were huge, man. You want to get rid of mosquitoes? Here it is.
Yeah, there's a common misconception that mosquito fish, like the Gabosian athenius, are the predominant, fish to get rid of.
Right.
Mosquitoes, but it's like there was a paper that I read put out by the Texas Parks and Wildlife that killifish actually do, I think it was like 10 to 15 times better at mosquito reduction than
the Gambusia, right?
And so there's tons of native killifish out there that are better looking than your average mosquito fish, and they won't be detrimental to the habitat they do get out.
That's true.
So,
and what I've noticed too is with the Gambusia, they're postiliads, and it's one of them things to where the protein intake is reflective of their life stage. Mm-hmm. Juveniles and gravid females are gonna want more protein, and then that intermediate stage they kind of graze really. Yeah. So they go to algae. They're omnivores. But going on into it, what's the next family you want to go into?
Some beautiful Chromium simians right here. There's the male right there, and there's just a massive colony of females. Kind of similar to what I've done with the Northos.
That's awesome. And can you kind of tell why you have some of these spawning mops on the bottom, some floating?
Yeah, so depending on the species of killifish, some prefer a floating mop and some prefer a sinking mop.
Okay.
And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make the mop just extra long, which is why you can see in a lot of these tanks, these mops, caress the bottom quite a bit. And that's just a just in case. Like if they would rather prefer to spawn on the bottom, the mop is there. or if they rather spawn on a standing mop, that mop is also there, and it's just a collection point for the eggs versus me having to
go through these plants.
Yeah, and while sometimes fry will survive the tanks, killifish are like I said, micro predators, and some will survive, but some will not. And I'd rather have as many fish possible to select from to continue on the breeding population.
Makes good sense. Now, it's good to be able to have a tangible example when you throw out these different terminologies. So you said a standing mop versus one that's on the substrate. So, like, kind of, this is what. So, like, if y'all go to the internet or somebody's trying to hype themselves up, standing literally means what it means. It's
or floating mop.
Floating.
Yeah.
It's standing up.
Yeah, and all I use is cork. I've seen people use styrofoam. My main issue with styrofoam is sometimes it breaks apart and you get those little floating beads. The last thing I'd want is to lose a killifish from eating a floating bead because killifish,
they eat anything they can put their mouth.
Yeah, anything that looks outside of the norm.
They're gonna pick at it.
Peck at it. And I wouldn't
That's so true.
So once again, being cheap as possible, I'm going on like Facebook Marketplace and I bought a bag of corks for $5.
Right.
Or you can buy them on Amazon or what's it called, even eBay.
See,
because people use them for crafts, and you can always repurpose stuff.
Find you a drunk.
You can always do that,
or a bar,
or you can enjoy the wine yourself.
Yeah, you can do that too.
That gets expensive.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. No, I mean you got a lot of tanks, bro.
Yeah.
You had to go you'd be like them old timers that on post, like on payday.
Yeah.
They go to the pharmacy and then they go right across the street to the package store and get like a whole shopping cart. Booze. But I said, no, I'm not going to do that when I get out.
Exactly.
So, I see you got this Killi loach over there. What's the story with this fella?
So, being in college, there's an aquarium club at A&M. And as the years go by, a lot of my friends get out. And they have fish. I'm like, hey, I know you keep fish. And so, will you take this, this, and this? And sometimes I say no because a lot of times they will clash in my tanks. Like I don't keep cichlids, and so a lot of them have cichlids. So I unfortunately turn them away. But I love these loaches; they're just little characters.
Yeah, and I just looked at him. That's not a Killi loach, y'all. That's a Java loach. I had to correct myself. He's cocoa brown, clean, no striations, no pattern. That's a Java. I think it's Canto something. I don't remember, but yeah, cool loach.
Yeah. And then one of my favorite tanks is the Apicylus leonidas or something like that. The golden wanderer essentially.
And these are the goldens.
But these are the wild strain, and so they look vastly different from the golden. See if I can pull them up so you can actually see them. Because they're definitely a fish that you should see right there below.
Look at that.
You see this coloration right here?
Y'all gotta excuse me. I got a distraction over here that just want all the attention. Like we've been trying to film and he over here wilding. So now, thanks, bro. Let him do babysit for me. So here they are, and look at them. They sure did name these things right.
They're just stunning fish. I
mean, absolutely amazing.
And it's a shame when you see like the wild native strain compared to like what we've done to like the golden ones. I think those are just great introductory fish. I think these are stunning.
Right. It's almost like it's just watercolor, so it's minimal, but it does a lot. And we talk about that. You got your purists. I'm a purist, man. I don't really keep a whole lot of ornamental stuff. Because you don't have to. All you gotta do is read books and figure out the stuff that look like this for free. So, what's this next to it? Are these the Bible potato?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're calling you setup as well.
Oh, these are the fungi?
Yep.
All right. I might end up. I think I want some of these. I ain't even gonna lie. Supposed to be interviewing you, not shopping, but who gives a damn? And these here?
That's just the female for the
the Golden Wonder.
Yep.
Okay.
I only have one female for her, and and I want to make sure she gets big and full of eggs before I even
Okay.
introduce them. Because sometimes with Killies, the females tend to do a lot better by themselves, and then you introduce the male to her setup, and they go at it for a couple of days, and then you pull the male, and then repeat and re-rinse.
So we skipped over this rack behind me on purpose. So let's get into this one.
So this is Abyssinian Callium, I believe is what the name is. It's from Nigeria. One of my first successful breeding attempts in terms of Abyssinians, and I can't get away from them. I love them. They look beautiful. And I wouldn't say common, but I would say uncommon Abyssinian.
Right.
At least in Texas.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool thing. They're like Pokemon. They really are.
100% like Pokemon. A lot of us grew up in the 90s or spent time in the 90s, and we remember those great days of watching Pokemon. And
gotta catch them all.
And that's how it is with killifish. There's over 1,300 different species, and it's addicting. It becomes a race to find space for tanks.
Right.
And that's essentially what this room is.
Dude, that's so true.
As much space as humanly possible. Luckily enough, my wife is a merciful and gracious God who allows me to keep all my fish.
Facts.
And we have a nice colony setup of shelly eye.
These look really good.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these males. I can't wait till my sub-adults start getting fat like this. Yeah. It's so cool to watch them beat the hell out of each other. And I was explaining on the way up here that killifish are a line of sight fish.
Yep.
If they can see the other ones, that's your ass. Like, they're one of many line of sight fish, and I think a lot of people don't know that. They're like, oh, it's pretty, it can't be evil. No, I beg to differ.
Oh yeah.
The environment. So tell them what the word killifish means, like Dutch.
Yeah. So killi is the Dutch word for a creek or stream, and as the years progressed, and as the migration of Americans essentially moved west, and they came across little fish in streams and whatnot. That's a killifish.
That's a killifish.
It's a stream fish.
Right.
And initially back in the day, that name was given to everything. And while everything found in creeks
or
and
a ditch.
Exactly.
A ditch fish. If it's in a ditch, it's killifish.
Killifish. And I remember reading a paper back in the day. They referred to Gambojas as killifish. That's why we have a lot of
misnomers.
Yeah, people call their fish killifish when they're not like the pipe killifish, or the lesser killifish and stuff like that. When
they're Gamboja.
Yeah, they're live.
Yeah.
And so as the years progressed, that's gotten fine tuned, and as with genetic data has come across, and we've established what is a killifish and what's not, and
they're still doing it.
They're still doing it. Things get changed up all the time. Just like shelly eye used to be Abyssinian, and now it's fun to
It's from the Panchax. And I was looking at those. The proto. The proto
Panchax?
Yeah, the proto Panchax, the lamp eyes.
Yeah.
So I got the Wrangles, bro, and I saw them on the list that day before, and I was like, see, look, and the red tails. I shouldn't have let them go. Yeah, dude. There's nothing on the internet about the husbandry of those fish.
Yeah.
It's a one of one. I don't even think anybody in the country has them. They came from Von Veen, the Dutchman. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm currently in a situation with North Brancus St. Housea. There's
really?
Gentleman,
where are yours? Things.
I have.
Pass them up.
I have some. Yeah, very bottom left tank.
This one.
Yep.
Here y'all go.
As far as we know, there's only myself and another gentleman that keep them in the States. There was a search for them a couple of months back, and I came across them, and I shipped some to another gentleman that is also very good with Northos.
Right.
And we've been doing very well with them, so we're gonna get them back in the hobby.
That's awesome, bro. So if y'all didn't hear him well, he is one of only 2 people in the country that has these. And what are they again?
North Brancus St. Housea.
St. Housea. So that's cool. Man, I'm really digging these back here, man.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, these are good fish.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this little guy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, ever since the white letter, we can't really sell those because those are South Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm just maintaining the line and holding on to them. So hopefully one day that will get repealed.
Yeah. And when we get done with this, we're going to go into why it's important to do what we do. So, speaking of which, you want to go cover some of these
Yeah, definitely.
lower tanks?
So
And then, because the people want to hear you talk about killifish. And I know George got a bunch of questions.
Yep, so this is just North Bronchus racovi, or racovi, however you want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you type in killifish, this is one of the fish that pop up on Google.
Mm-hmm.
Just a wonderful Northo. They can be slightly aggressive, but as you can see, I have loads of males in here, and there's several females as well. And the trick is to raise them all together and not separate them. And if you do that and give them plenty of space and plenty of females, they usually do rather well. And as you can see, there's several containers of peat, and that's just to spread out the breeding activity, as well as give males different areas to kind of control. You can see that male.
Look at them
flaring.
sparring. Yeah, they're flaring up like betas, and that's just cool.
And there will always be like a dominant male in the tank. Like you can see this one up front, how colorful and how vibrant he is compared to the other ones. And if I were to remove him, another male would essentially take his place as the alpha, if you will, of the tank. And that's just very common.
You guys are lovely, man. Okay.
Yeah, and then this one's just courthousei. You can see the male in the tank and a bunch of females. There's several lesser males that are growing out in there as well. But the one dominant male is just sitting inside of the peat, owning it, and he's been sitting there. The only time he comes out is to get food. He'll sit in that container all day long, and that's
it's dope.
It's interesting.
I love it.
I haven't seen any do that before, so I'm not sure if that's just a thing he's
like for
decided
this species
to do.
Or this particular fish?
That particular fish.
Gotcha.
I've never seen another Northo. I'm sure there's other examples.
Right.
I'm sure other people have experienced that, but that's the first time I've ever experienced that behavior where a male just will sit in a container and own it and essentially never get out. Like you said, the only time he does get out is to eat.
And see, it's cool. You get to pick up all of the nuances of their behavior.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what makes shows and meetups, with other hobbyists so great, because you can compare that knowledge that you've stumbled across and see if they've experienced the same thing. Like I remember at the show, we were discussing how it seems that some species of fish grow faster with females in the tank, and how some seem to not. And we're curious if there's something, if either her presence brings out a growth change, if she's putting something out in the water, perhaps hormones or something like that.
Like some kind of synergy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I make observations like that. Those gunthies that I put them in there with Bloody Marys. Yeah. And I was explaining to the people I want them to clean up these Bloody Marys because they're micro predators. Yeah. And sure as shit, they cleaned them up. I pulled back a piece of moss the other day, and I got like ocean of red. All nice. Yeah. Like they cleaned my shrimp, they cleaned them up. It was like a population explosion because the shrimp are like, holy shit, there's somebody in here to eat us. We gonna die. Yeah.
Somebody can reproduce.
Boom. Yeah. So it's cool just watching those. I like playing with synergy, seeing what makes what happen to what.
Yeah, that's honestly the exact reason why I'm an ecology major, because I find how they split each other and how they change and affect each other incredibly interesting. Yeah. And I think that especially fish and other animals are worth being saved, and it's just a shame to see habitat, different species just get lost. Because especially with killifish, a lot of these in the wild are only found within like football field of an area. It's a shame that becomes farmland
I was explaining that yesterday. I was on the phone with Watts. I was telling him how eutrophication works, and like these fish are a testament to diversity and how well diversity works. You know, like you got a mud puddle, like you said, the size of a football field, and what, 2 miles, 3 miles, 10 miles away, you got a whole different species, like genetically separate and everything.
Yeah.
And it blows people's mind.
Yeah, and what's even more interesting is how it could even be, a short distance away. There could be the same exact species genetically, but phenotypically they're incredibly
right.
different. They look like something completely different, but they are the exact same species.
I observed that in Imlers, in the Poecilia winged. Yeah. Like I was telling somebody about that. Like El Tigre is a phenotype. And we were talking about ethics and making mutts and selling them for $1 on the internet, silly shit like that, And is it ethical? No. Are you really doing anything wrong? Not technically, but for the preservation of diversity in the species, I don't think it's ethically sound.
Definitely, especially like if you have issues with egg fertility or survivability, or you're beginning like if you have a breeding depression, and that's a very common thing across the hobby, then I think that's a must if you want a species to survive. Like if you have 2 separate locations, and you could breed those 2 separate locations out, you continue to get terrible fish, and those fish don't reproduce in the end. It's like the lesser of two evils. You can cross those 2 locations and get a mix of genetics and have the genus and the species, but you don't have no location, or you can have 2 separate locations that die out within the next year. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Right. I mean, well, I'm pretty good like with that. Like if you want to go to the discussion part, we can. Like you want to go sit down and put the computer, turn this thing off, have coffee, let the people ask you questions. I'll let Jorge do it.
Sure.
All right, cool.
Hey, Steve, so are you gonna go jump on your computer, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm on the computer's already it's already fired up. I just gotta freaking switch back over to it.
Okay.
But
Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any questions for Devin.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a few questions, but I'll wait till you guys come back up on camera.
Well, where you want to sit at? In here?
We can do that here or in the living room.
Oh shit. Yeah, probably in there. I'll put my computer down. I'll get out the way. Yeah. Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, you got it. All right. Well, they're setting up. You guys have any questions you guys want to ask Devin? Any concerns that you guys might have regarding the killifish? Apparently, I wasn't too far off in some of the information I gave you, which makes me feel a little bit better that I've actually picked up some of that stuff. Hey, Mike, how's it going? And but they're really interesting little fish. I mean, it's just one of the big appeals is the coloration that they get to me, and this is personally speaking. You get a lot of the yellows and reds seems to be predominant in these species, and even though some of them are small, but like what I always found surprising when I finally got to see a blue gularis in person, they get pretty big. They can be up to almost a 4-inch fish, if not bigger. Jeff says that he needs a pair of the Australi. I'm sure you could. You're in within earshot of being able to pick those up, Jeff. Shame on you if you don't. Yeah, and thank you, Coral. Thank you for that. If you haven't hit the like, just make sure you hit the like, please. Or don't do it. It really doesn't matter. We'll still be here. We'll still be putting out information for you guys, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Let me run real quick because I just realized my battery's about to die. Give me a second. Let me go grab the charger real quick. Got the charger cable. I wasn't prepared. I didn't think it was gonna go through my battery that quick. But anyways, we're back up and running. Let's see. Well, anyways, we're just waiting for Steve and Devin to get back up. Yeah, like I said, I know there's going to be a couple of changes going in my fish room. I mean, I think I'm going to start taking it in a different direction. I know I was trying to line breed mud guppies into trying to strain out some of those lines. The upside of that has been that it's actually been a learning experience. It's a lot more work uh, than one really thinks, especially because you've got to be constantly culling fish, and not necessarily for genetic purposes, excuse me, but for the coloration and the genes that you want to be able to get. And what I've taken away from this is a much greater appreciation for the people that do straighten out lines or create their own lines to be able to sell these. You're up here, Steve. The only thing is you're still muted. Oh, you're back down. So whenever you guys are ready, just make sure you guys are mute. Are you going to be running also the phone, or are you guys going to be both off the computer? You got to turn one of them off because you're going to get that echo. Either turn down the volume on the, okay. Yeah, one of the volumes has got to be down. Let me put you up there. There you are.
Okay, good to go.
Yeah, sounds good too.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
The only thing is you don't have any video, but
On my video?
no, your
Okay.
the camera's off.
All right, we should be good here.
There you go.
Gotcha. All right. So we got Devin here. Y'all have at it.
What is this, a fight or what? Yeah. Hey, Devin. Nice to meet you. It's actually not the first time that we've actually exchanged words as far as communication. I actually was curious to see how long ago it was that I had reached out to you, and it turns out it was back in February 22, on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it was for trying to get information on those Athena's mentals, and I really do appreciate you giving me that information. I couldn't find unless you know exactly what you're looking for on the internet. It's kind of hard to find some of these websites, and you know, it was really great to be able to get access to that and actually learn a little bit. And yeah, you know, because these websites do look like they were put together like in the late 80s, early 90s. They're not your typical websites like you would see here. They're more like the old blog rooms that used to be the chat rooms that used to exist. That's kind of the way they're set up. You don't get a lot of graphics, a lot of stuff like that. It's just a lot of information, a lot of reading that you have to go through. But you know, thank you very much for that. That was very helpful to be able to get access to that information. And again, thank you for opening up the doors to us to be able to see what you're doing and experience some of the projects that you're working on. I really do appreciate that.
Well, I definitely enjoy sharing it with everyone because, you know, you spend all this time and effort into something, and there's always a very small niche of people that enjoy it and appreciate it as much as you do. So I really enjoy sharing it with everyone.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is all relatively new to me, and I'm finding it real interesting. I mean, there's just so much information out there. Probably within the last few months, I've been diving into learning more about these species and trying to, you know, like I said, I'm still a little bit intimidated by some of the annuals, just because, for one thing, they tend to be a little bit softer water kind of fish, and where I'm at in Arizona, it's hard water. So there's always that, am I going to mess this up if I don't get the water chemistry correctly? So there's a little bit of that hesitation. And then the other one is the taking care of the eggs and having to put them through the dry period. I know it's not as difficult as it probably sounds, but it does sound a little bit intimidating for somebody that's never done it before.
No,
So
definitely.
that's why there's been that hesitation to try to go into that. But sooner or later, um, given the right opportunity, I'll be doing that too. But again, thanks for sharing that with us. Real quick, how many tanks are you running in your fish room?
At the moment, I think I'm at like 60-ish, and of course, I have several. I really don't include like shoe boxes
Mhm.
because I have multiple shoe boxes for fry, and occasionally I'll keep like a male or a female that I'm either medicating because they got beat up, or I'm separating because I want the females to develop more eggs. But at the moment, I'm keeping 60.
Okay. Now, when you guys are breeding, and my only experience really that I can draw from is like when I'm breeding live bears, guppies, and stuff like that. Do you guys also try to uh, bring out certain genetics in these fish when you're breeding them, or it's just straight breeding, everything goes? And what I mean by that is coloration on these fish. Are you trying to uh, bring out certain colors on these that are more predominant, or is like I said, just what breeds is what sells?
No, so especially like with a show, because most of the time we breed fish to show them, and any ones that we have extra, we tend to sell those. And you're always looking for the fish that looks most like the native strain of what
Okay.
you have. And like I was telling Steve, I keep Egger's Eye, which is a Northo, and sometimes you'll get males that are missing slight patches of coloration on their fin or on their body, and those fish usually get put into either a cold tank or like I'll wholesale those to an aquarium shop just because they're still great
Mhm.
fish, but they don't match the criteria to be put in my breeding tanks, and that's something
So
that most Killi keepers keep an eye out for, stuff like that.
So they get shown competitively then, right?
Oh
They
yeah. Mhm.
okay. That's pretty interesting.
Show them
I
some of
wasn't
your
aware that
gold.
that was a thing. What did
I'm
Steve
sorry.
say?
He said to show some of my awards that I won from Takeo.
Oh, yeah, you could do that. That'd be cool to be able to see some of that. So when you're breeding, with breeding with killies, I know, and again, I'm drawing back to what's familiar to me. When I'm doing live bears, a lot of the times you got to run more than one tank when you're breeding because you'll have your breeding pairs in the tank.
Hmm.
Once they drop the fry, if you're trying to breed for profit or whatever, you want to make sure you have a lot of the most survivability of the fry. So you put them in a different tank. Is that something that you also do with these killifish? Do you have to run multiple tanks for one pair, breeding pair, or is it all just communal?
So that's why we have shoe boxes. Like most killer keepers keep shoe boxes, and like for example, like most of my breeding tanks are 5 gallons, and then I'll have like another 10 gallon. That's like a once the fry reach a certain size, I'll put them all in there, and then I can select the ones I keep. But initially, like once they hatch, I'll put them in shoe boxes, and depending on the species and depending on the size of the fry, it'll range from like 20 to 50 fish per shoe box, and then from there, as they progress in size and age, then I'll move the larger ones to the grow out tank, if you will, which is my 10 gallons, and then from there I can select which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to sell off. And
Okay.
I know a lot of people go that route just to ensure that um, there's no crowding, there's no infighting, because a lot of species of killifish are cannibalistic and they will eat each other. And even small fry, like I remember um, I was I was raising Epiplas DJI, and I was wondering where all my fry were going because I had like a box of 20 of them, and then it got down to like 10. I'm like, wait a second, something's wrong here. And then I got my headlamp on and looked down at them, and there was a little fry like about the size of a grain of rice with another fish's head sticking out of its mouth. And I was like, well, there goes all my fry. And that one that was eating everyone was slightly larger than the rest, but he was still eating his siblings, from there. So ensuring that you have the right size in each box is really important because they will eat each other.
Yeah. And shit, that was a question I wanted to ask, but it just kind of slipped my mind. But anyways, it'll come to me.
Well, I got one real
So,
quick, Jorge.
all right, go ahead.
Devin, can you clear up for the people when you say after you do your culls, you take them to the pet store? So, like, can you explain that it don't mean that they don't make suitable pets, and then to the likelihood of somebody buying them from a pet store, breeding them,
Yeah.
and putting them into like a show or something. You're not doing anything unethical by doing that.
Yep.
They're pet quality, basically.
Yep, they're pet store quality fish. There's nothing wrong with them genetically. They just didn't have the coloration that I wanted. And it's a great way to put fish out there that normally people won't have, because normally you go in a pet store, you find golden wanderers, you find some Gunther eyes, not Gunther eyes, Gardner eyes. Occasionally you'll find some epiplatus or like clown killifish, stuff like that. But by putting fish that don't make my checklist out there, it gives other people a chance to get into the hobby and experience fish, and then from there keep harder and more difficult fish, because it's easier to lose in my opinion, a fish from a pet store versus finding a breeder and then getting all that breeder's fish and then end up killing those fish, and then you feel like a dirtbag for doing that, which everyone kills fish. There's not a fish keeper out there that hasn't killed a fish that like, oh man, I really enjoyed that one, or I really was hoping that one survived to produce more fish later on. But it really gives people an ability to dip their feet, if you will, in the killing world with other species that are more so uncommon, if you will.
Yeah, and again, when it goes to this culling, and I kind of understand that you're not culling for physical deficiencies like dead spines or anything like that.
Yeah.
Really, what it is, especially now that if you're breeding them for show, they might not meet those colorations that you're looking for. That's all it is. But it's still, for somebody that's not going to show them, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the show one and the one that's being culled, because it doesn't meet your standards.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that it's a defective fish. It just doesn't meet the standards you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing holds with the guppies that I breed and stuff like that. When I tell them I cull, and the first reaction is, well, you're killing them. Is no, I'm just moving the strains that I don't want, the genetic strains that I don't want, and separating them. They're still living a full life in an aquarium, but I'm only keeping the genes that I want. And so, yeah, culling sometimes gets a negative connotation because they think it's euthanized. It's not. Culling doesn't always mean euthanizing.
Exactly.
Speaking of that one too, Devin, can you kind of touch on because Mr. Heller kind of touched on in his talk, like culling versus pet store quality fish versus being over generous with fish that you do want to spread out, A, to share, and B, for insurance in case something happened to your colony.
Yeah, so like a lot of times, like killie keepers in the hobby will spread out fish to other breeders that they trust to ensure that line stays. Like there's been plenty of times that I've had like a cool fish, or a cool species. I'm like, I really, really enjoy this, and I hope nothing happens to them. And the worst happens, right? Like I remember during the freeze, I lost my foreshy. Like a couple years ago in Texas, we had a massive snowstorm, and while I had great survivability, I did lose one strain of my Northos, which was Northobranchus foreshy. It looks similar to a Gunther eye, but it has like a really, really colorful.
Yeah, I got some Sogotans at the house.
Exactly, same exact line. Yeah. And I gave those to a fellow breeder with the expectation that, hey, if I ever lose these fish, I need some back. I need some eggs back.
I'm going to come sit over there then.
Come squat.
Shit. I mean, we might as well get close there. We both married. Fuck it.
Yeah.
We got to be kind of careful with the internet these days. Watch your phone.
but that's definitely a big thing in the hobby, is finding other trusted, breeders and people that keep fish in general. Is to share the wealth, if you will.
Right.
Because no one likes that guy that plays out of a secret. Like it's like being in the military. You always hate that officer or that staff NCO that plays out of a secret until the last moment. And that's a lot of it with killifish.
We call it gatekeeping.
Exactly. And so I think the name of the game, like with killifish, is spreading as many fish out there as humanly possible, so that if that one person that has been holding this one line for years loses them, it's not a total loss to the entire community.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned whitelist, you mentioned the South American ribs. Can you kind of go into the people about AKA, about taco, about why it's important, and more importantly, the networking?
Mm-hmm.
that it does. And like, this is national. It's got money behind it, and it's got power behind it too. So, okay, if you could, to the people.
So from my understanding, which is definitely limited, but so a few years back, I think it was like 2018, someone within the U.S. Fish and Game got with another gentleman in Brazil that also deals with their aquatic life, and they issued out a whitelist that prevented the importation of a bunch of different species, including a lot of killifish.
Okay.
And so the issue was say species A resides in Brazil. That species A also resides in Colombia.
Right.
And so there was this huge issue where, like, well, species A also exists in this other country that allows exports. Right. And because of that, the species A can't be sold in the United States or even crossing state lines because that interferes with interstate commerce.
Right, because they looked over the intersectionality of these species being able to live everywhere.
Yeah, and so from my understanding, that has gotten cleared up, and why collection codes are so important these days is to ensure that, hey, this isn't from Brazil, this is from a different country. Let's
do that. So you just said collection code, right?
Yeah.
And like, we throw the jargon around, and I do it too with the play codes, like the L numbers and stuff. Can you explain to the people, let's use an easy one, let's use a P82. Explain to the people what that is. That's the steel blue killifish, or like, I'm old school, I always knew that's the gardener's killi or gardeneri, but explain to them like what it means.
So the collection code is really three things. So it's where the fish was collected, who was collected by, the collection spot, and the date it was collected. So a lot of times you'll see, like Fun Pancakes, Gardeneri, Maget,
right.
ADL.
Was it 9313?
It was 1315.
1315.
And so the genus, the species, the location, the initials of the people who collected it, collection date, and collection point and collection date.
Gotcha.
And so it's important to ensure that if you have those, you breed them within those collection points, because at any point you were to breed it with an aquarium strain, it's an aquarium strain fish.
Right. So like, if you see CF on a bag, it means captive fry.
Yeah.
And like, what he's saying is, like, it goes to ethics. So if these fish are carrying this specific genetic population, and then you mix it with a captive bred, like, what is it, hybrid vigor, I think is what they call it.
That is, yeah.
Like, I'm in school too. So speaking of which, so we're doing the hobby, we're doing these organizations, we're pushing this. And the reason I really want to get Devin on the show is because he's a veteran too. And we're both in college. We're both going grad for nerd related stuff. And we're just walking the walk and showing y'all how to really incorporate what you love into your life, but in a selfless way, like help other people too. And I'm glad you agreed to come up here and do this. But when we talk about like the code, the date, the name, etc., look at inlets, right? A lot of these fish are extinct in the wild, or critically endangered. The Killi come to the Cameroonies, bro. They're CR, so they're critically endangered if they're CR. So with that, how do you think it impacts Earth, right? Say we're in school, we get with our biology department or whoever. They got to study, and they're going to use us to say, hey, we want you to breed this so we can try to reintroduce it into the wild.
Yeah, and you've seen that happen a lot with, fishes in Mexico.
Like, the Gudaids.
Yeah, the Gudaids.
Where Jorge at?
I'm right here.
Yeah, so it's exactly the same thing with the Gudaids in Mexico. And, I've been preaching this on the show. Habitat loss, being a steward of the earth, using social media right. Like, these fish at this stage in the game, if you arguing about animal husbandry, you ain't got no business touching these.
Yeah, and it's a big shame because, I've spoken to some of the Brazilian fish keepers, and they're not even allowed to keep native killifish. And it's a shame for them to know where a fish is. And I know there's a lot of great scientists out in Brazil working with killifish. But a lot of them being annuals, the issue is, they'll look at a place to develop during the dry season and there's no fish, but during the wet season when the eggs hatch, there's fish. And so it's like, hey, there's no fish here. Let's go ahead and develop this area.
Right.
And then, hey, well, where's this species of fish that was here under this parking lot?
It's amazing you bring that up because I was talking with Jorge and Watts. And this is our circle of hobbyists, us, and then my brothers. I would like to consider them all that. And I'm always trying to explain to these cats the most abstract concepts, right? Mm-hmm. And then Jorge was busting my balls this morning. He was like, Steve, there you go again with your damn abstract ideas. And you just be telling me shit like I'm supposed to know what you talking about, like I'm in your head. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I laughed and I told him what I was talking about. So I was explaining ephemeral pools, right?
Yeah.
We country boys.
Yeah.
You go in the pasture.
Mm-hmm.
You see that mud in there, and it's a mud puddle, like a charcoal. And it ain't a stock tank or nothing like that. It's just a
little divot in the earth. Yeah.
It's an ephemeral pool. It'll be Gambosia in there. It'll be Killi's or whatever type. It's all kind of shit in there. My thing was this. That shit ain't fed by nothing but rainwater.
No, that's exactly it.
And I'm wondering how in the hell did these Gambosia go in there? Now, the females of a lot of prociliates can be born gravid because the mom passes the gametes onto the fertilized gametes onto her, to her babies. So you can get a drop. You can pull you some females. Shit you not. Put them in an aquarium with no other studs, not a stud in there, and feed them well, and they will come. You'll see a gravid spot, and you'll get a drop. And it might not be the biggest drop, but what I've noticed is those fry are huge, and they're damn near true to the phenotype of whatever male that female chose, because they also choose which male to give sperm to the developing gametes from. The embryos, I should say. So we're looking at the ephemeral pool. Killifish need that. Like, explain, because I do plants. Yeah. I'm explaining to people oxygen exchange. I'm explaining to people ionic exchange, which is caused by tannins. Literally, it's the phenols. And they mess with the ionization. And basically, it's the mineral and nutrient uptake availability in the water column. So I'm pushing all this, and I'm bringing it to a head. I talk about atmospheric CO2 and what that does. Now, you in ecology, you know that CO2 is going to serve as a pH lowering agent.
Like a buffer.
Right, it's a buffer. And we talk about buffering. Buffering is basically the capacity to convert carbolic acid in water. So when you look at that, you look at the nothos, you look at the little ice cream tub we got in there with the pee. The argument always is people, well, I don't want to put that in my water because it's going to do this. Or I don't want to do that because it's going to do that. Like, explain to the people how nature use chemical cues and subtle cues to program not just the fish itself, but the whole damn ecosystem. Yeah, so
it's having tannins and having those substances in the water are incredibly beneficial to the eggs and whatnot, because especially with northos, because they go through different stages of diapause. They go, and depending on the species, they'll enter diapause 1, diapause 2, or diapause 3. And it's due to external factors as well as maternal factors, depending on how young or old the female that spawned the eggs are.
Right.
And now those cues, once the water has dried up in the ephemeral pools, it essentially kicks the eggs out of those stages of diapause once they have developed enough, depending on those cues.
Right.
And so if there is a lot of CO2 present, that is a catalyst for those eggs to continue developing out of diapause 1 or diapause 2.
Right.
Diapause 3 is usually a maternal, not issue, but it's determined by maternal factors.
Right.
And that's essentially when the egg is fully developed, the fish is fully developed, but something is preventing the egg from hatching, and it's an issue with killifish,
Right. Especially the gallards.
especially like fun panchaks.
Yeah.
is a big thing, because I remember when I first started, that was something that stumped me for a while. It's like these eggs are developed or they're not developed and they're stuck in diapause 1. They require, if you will, a kick to get out of.
That's the catalyst we talking about, y'all.
And a lot of times it is CO2, which
There
is
you go.
why there's this old technique in the hobbies where you get either a film canister, like the old black film canister
Right.
that used to take to Walgreens, or a medicine ball that's been washed out, and you put some of the water from the tank as well as the eggs, just breathe into it, cap it, and put it in your pocket, and the agitation,
Warm it up.
the warmth, and the CO2 will kick
Activate those eggs. Yep.
and
That's
get
old school.
and get them moving.
You know what? And the problem is, so you got the misinformation, you got social media, and you got people trying to sell shit. I'm just call it what it is. And that's still the model. And that's what keep people from wanting to keep annuals, is because they still thinking of this film canister. It's antiquated, but it works.
It works.
But they still, I ain't trying to dry no eggs and put them in a film canister. What if I mess it up and then they're gonna get fungus on them? Whoop-de-whoop. I promise y'all, anything living coming from Africa, women, children, dogs, mosquitoes, is tougher than woodpecker lips. I promise you. Like, that shit is survivable. So,
it's very true.
just, you don't gotta baby it. Like, it don't need you. You just want to experience it. So you gotta flip the perspective.
No, exactly. And like how I keep my almost every eggs in general, I will either put them in a Ziploc, like Northo eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Once I dry them out, I'll put them in a Ziploc bag with the peat.
Okay.
And store them on top of my fish rack for months and don't even touch them.
We do this different here on Fish Planting Moss. We run our show like a real podcast. We're going to have a conversation. Do you have anything on hand that, like an example that you could grab real quick to show the people? They'll wait. It's all good. So he's going to go grab y'all some visual examples. And while he's running to get that, this is like the culmination of what me and Jorge have come together to do, which is promote substance. We're not against selling stuff. We're all about ethics, though, and just basically trying to grow. And hopefully this whole stream here is, I don't want to say nutritious, but substantial, the way y'all can take something away from it. And we want you to go buy killifish, because if you have them, then you get curious, then you learn. That means you're doing.
Yeah. So this is like a regular shoebox that I spray painted black. And the reason for that is because sunlight does affect any living cells.
Mm-hmm.
And so especially when they're in that state, they can be affected by it, and it works out well. And so I'll keep this box top of my fish rack, and inside the box are my bags of peat, and it works beautifully. The only issue with it is that sometimes eggs will get lost in the peat. They tend to get stained by the peat, which is not detrimental to the eggs by any means. It happens in nature. Okay. But for us, it can be a little annoying.
Right. You can't identify them as readily, like how they're developing.
Exactly.
When you get them in the microscope.
Mm-hmm. But it works out beautifully. And
if you can hold one to the camera so you can show them how you label it, everything.
And so how I label my eggs is that I will write the species. So this is a Northobranchus, and I'll write the date, because time is very important when hatching or preparing Northo eggs, because they develop at a certain rate at a certain temperature. So I know my fish room is kept around 75 degrees, and based off of that, I have my little handy dandy notebook. And from past experiences, I know at what time works best for that certain species.
Makes sense.
And once that time is up, I'll go through and always verify, check and verify that the eggs are ready to hatch.
You farming, bro.
With a little microscope, and then from there,
farming, bro.
Dunk them in water.
Yeah. Take your time, check your progress, and
get
the harvest going. You're like, that's farming.
Yep, and I think that's usually like almost the biggest issue with Northos, because it's not instant.
Right.
You don't get instant gratification.
So true. You
have to be patient and set them aside, and then wait for things to happen.
Right.
Like, there's been plenty of times where I've I've collected eggs, and they're going to be set up for 6 months. Like with Rackavai, they'll be setting up for 6 months, and by that time, all their parents have died. They spend more time in egg form than actual fish form.
Right.
And so I'll just have eggs for that species, and you're hoping, well, shoot, I don't have any more eggs coming in, so I hope, these eggs will give me, more life.
Right.
And that can be definitely very, very frustrating.
So, let's get to the meat of that, right? So go ahead.
Let me ask something real quick. Hey, Devin, for when you're collecting eggs, as a not necessarily a new fish keeper, somebody that's like myself has got some experience, but really hasn't dealt with killifish.
Yeah.
When it comes to the egg layers that you have to put in substrate, are they all pretty much the same, or is there certain eggs that are easier to store and put away than others? Well, what's the situation with those? I guess it would be the annuals.
Yeah. So annual eggs usually take months to develop, right? While semi-annuals, being like fun panchaks, like the blue galaris, the Gardneri, stuff like that, usually take around 20 days. And then you have like your non-annuals, which is typically Epicemium, Epiplatus. Those take, a couple of days, like a couple of weeks, like 2 to 3 weeks tops. And while those eggs develop faster, you have to be really on top of it. Like I know, for example, Epiplatus DeJi, Monrovi, there's like a 2-day window for those. Like you have to get them in the water, at least for me. And keep in mind, like all this is just my experience, like and stuff that I've dealt with. But like there's like a 2-day window that like you need to get these eggs in the water, and if you don't, they're gonna hatch whether you put them in the water or not. And hopefully they're in the water when they hatch. But with Northos, there is plenty of wiggle room. Like say they should be hatched on the first of the month. Like normally you can wait a couple of weeks if you don't have a Fissoria ready, or you don't have a hatch set up ready to go. You don't have to do it right then and there. And so that's definitely a reason why I enjoy Northos, because there is a lot more wiggle room compared to other species. And in terms of Northos and just annuals in general, they lay their eggs and you can hatch them all in the same way. So it's really convenient to have multiple hatchings of Northos ready, so you can all hatch them at the same time. You don't have to hatch one box one day, another box another day.
Right, stagger.
Yeah, so you can have them all around the same time period to ready to go. The only issue with that is that Nothobranchus females look extremely alike. Like there's only one instance where a female looks different from other females that I know of, and it's the Rackavai. And the only way you can tell is at the very top of her eye. She has a little black tick, like a black tick, right above her iris, and that's the only way you can tell from other ones. And of course, there's some slight shades of gray,
right?
But other than that, that's the only for me, that's the biggest issue with Northos, is that all the females look extremely alike. As to like Funla Panchaks or Epiplatus or Epicemians, you can kind of tell the difference between females because they look a little bit more like the males. But with Northos,
right,
almost all the females look very, very similar, to the point where like I've had 2 fry tanks growing out together, and I had something either hatch out and jump, or as I was collecting eggs, I didn't ensure that my net. Because once you collect your peat, you pour it into a fine mesh net and squeeze out the water, and then add it to your bag. I didn't sanitize my net properly, and I had another species of Northo egg in the net mesh. And as I transferred another species, there was cross contamination,
right?
And I had to nuke the entire tank because. Once again, within the killifish hobby,
you didn't know how you gonna pick that one.
How you gonna pick that
one?
one?
I hate that. And I try to tell people I'm weird like that. That's why I got fish in little jar. I don't give a damn if it hold water, and I can isolate that fish until I get him right. Because if he dead, you screwed anyway. Yeah. But I am not mixing nothing in there to nuke a tank. And I say this with everything. Like I'm running the Turkana cichlids right now. And my fear is that over time, they're gonna get diluted with some of the other jewel cichlid species, because you want to sell them. We want pretty, we want red, we want a lot of high iridescence. They don't care about the genetic purity of these specimens. So like you running right into our next topic, like me and Jorge, we kind of like vibe off of each other. It's never planned.
Yeah.
Like that question that he asked goes right into what I was fixing to ask you anyway.
Well,
go ahead.
Before you move on, so that being said, and that explanation, me as a new person trying to dip my hands into killifish, I have the experience of keeping fish. I understand the basic principles, the nitrogen cycle, the husbandry, but I want to try these new species. What would be, in your case, or in your opinion, a good recommendation for somebody who has experience keeping fish, but they're going to try it's going to be their first try at killifish? What would you recommend that killifish be that person keeps to start learning about them?
So if you want to go annual, like the African or South American annual killifish, I'd recommend North of Broncos Guntherei. It is by hands down the easiest fish you can do. I've raised them outside in tubs out here in Texas. They do fine.
Kenyan weather.
Yeah, I've raised them in an aquarium setting. I've raised them in a 2.5 gallon all the way to a 20 gallon. They are by far the easiest Northo to get into, or easiest annual to get into. And that's primarily why they're so common in the hobby, is because they're so easy. But at the same time, that gives you some security. Like, hey, if I mess this fish up, no harm, no foul. There's every killifish keeper knows where you can get more. But luckily enough, they only take 3 months to develop, so it's a lot shorter than some of the other ones. And they produce a lot of eggs for Northos. For semi-annuals, which is like fun the Pancheks, you can never go wrong with a good old Gardnerei.
No, can't go wrong.
They do well with hatching inside of a tank. Or you can pick them yourself, and they do well, taking the eggs and either water hatching them or peat hatching them. And that's essentially just picking the eggs off the mop and putting them in a small container of water and doing water changes with that. Or you can place them like on a petri dish with peat and watch them develop that way. Both ways work beautifully with those. Or if you were to go to non-annuals, which is like Epicemium epiplatus, you can never go wrong with, honestly, any of them.
Rockets. Even the Monrovia are nice. The black chins, those are nice.
Yep. Any Epicemium, like Epicemium Australia, which is another common one. Epicemiums are just super easy. Yeah. Or even epiplatus, they do well like with water hatching inside their tanks as well as peat hatching. They're relatively easy. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of the people that are watching today are been curious. They're like in the same boat that I am. We've come across these fish. We're curious, but we're still a little bit hesitant because we find them a little bit intimidating.
No, I can definitely see that because I know when I first started, like, I'm not one of those people that, had an aquarium, when I was 5 years old. Like a lot of people, I grew up relatively poor. And so, my parents didn't know anything about fish. I didn't know anything about fish. And then I remember like watching like Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. And like that really got my interest peaked about, just the world itself and the nature that we have around us. And, I remember when I was stationed in Virginia, when I was teaching at Quantico, I walked into a pet store and saw killifish, and I thought it said kill fish. I was like, that's savage. I want to kill fish. And then the love of the aquatic specialist was like, that's killifish. Actually, it made me feel like an idiot. I'm like, well, okay.
You got your first taste of the fish police.
Yeah, exactly. And so then from there, I found that Texas had a killifish organization, and I got in connection with Art Luderman, who has been hands down like the best mentor, a new killifish person, enthusiast could have. And from there, just picking every brain I could find about killifish, and then from there developing my own opinions and ideas about things, is really, really what you should do. And I feel like the killifish community has definitely started opening up more and being more inviting.
Yeah, it was gatekeeper as hell when I got in back in the day.
Initially, I remember there were several gentlemen that like would leave my messages on red. I'm like, okay.
And we talked about that. Like,
yeah, but nowadays it's gotten a lot better, since like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no shit. Imagine like in the 90s, bro.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, like I was like 19, 20 and shit. No bueno. But that brings, so we talk about transparency and intimidation, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people just gonna go with stuff. Like they're gonna co-sign because they scared to ask a question like, what that mean? What you mean by that? So could you explain diapause to the people as related to killifish? Because
definitely
other organisms seeds have to go through diapause too.
Yeah. So just like you said, I remember when I first started, I had no idea what diapause was.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially when I was younger, in my early 20s, I didn't know how to read scientific papers and understand like what all the weird words meant.
Right.
And so after a few years of looking at it and finding art, I was able to figure out what it actually was. And so, like I said previously, there's 3 different stages of diapause. And there's also delayed hatching, which is something that like native killifish go through.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start with delayed hatching. So delayed hatching is experienced by like killifish found within like fundulas, which is like, if you ever go down the coast and use mud minnows, that's a killifish. It's Fundulus grandis. And so essentially what will happen is the fish will lay eggs on like plant material, reeds, like seagrass, and as the tides rise and whatnot, the eggs will develop and it'll wait for the next tide.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily in diapause because it's ready to hatch.
Right.
And at that point, once the next tide raises and caresses those eggs, the eggs will hatch. So that's what delayed hatching is.
Gotcha.
It's separate from diapause.
Okay.
Then we have diapause 1, 2, and 3, mm-hmm. which can be experienced by semi-annuals and non-annuals. That's what's the difference. Not non-annuals, annuals and semi-annuals, and that's where they get those terms. Not annuals, semi-annuals, and non-annuals. Is their ability to enter or exit diapause. And so non-annuals, from my understanding, don't enter diapause. Like I'm 95% sure they don't.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
Them bitches hatch.
They do, which is why they hatch so quickly. Mm-hmm. So we have diapause 1, and that's initially from laying to hatching. Not hatching, but from laying till, depending on the fish species, it can last for a couple of hours to a couple of days to a couple of weeks.
Right.
And if you look at it under a microscope, it's essentially the egg with it looks like a yolk. It's a lipid concentration in the center. And from that point, depending on external factors, whether it's temperature, CO2, oxygen levels, even temperature and light of the presence, it will move on to diapause 2. And all throughout this time, once it reaches these benchmarks of diapause 1 and diapause 2, in between those points, they are developing. Mm-hmm. And diapause is just a halt in embryonic development. And so from that point, from diapause 1, it develops and it hits diapause 2. And all throughout that time, it's developing its heart, its spinal cord, its nerves, in the beginning of its digestive tract.
Right.
And so from that point, once again, depending on external factors, whether it's CO2, air, or whatnot, it will break out of that diapause 2 and then either hatch or enter diapause 3.
Based on the catalyst available, and that's influenced by the environment.
By the environment as well as maternal factors. Diapause 3 is mostly maternal factors, but it can be affected by external factors.
Okay. Now, you spoke about the diapause, and like for the biology nerds out there, think like stasis. Yeah. It's like suspended animation, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's basically nature's insurance to say, we don't know when it's going to rain, but it's hot as hell out here. And even if they go longer than the 3 to 6 month window, some of them going to live, and all we need is 2.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally a biological safety net.
That's it.
And not every egg will develop at the same time frame, which is why a lot of times when you go to hatch out Northobranchus, you recollect the peat after a couple of days and restore it for a couple of weeks, and then you re-wet it, and you'll have a second hatch or flush, if you will, for my mycology friends. And it's really interesting how that works out because it is a safety net for those random rains that they get in Africa.
Exactly.
It'll rain for a little bit and then all of a sudden dry up completely, and God forbid it wipes out an entire population within an area.
Exactly.
It's a safety net.
So going into that, I kind of want to get into the nuance of taxonomy, why it's important, and historically, it was important because all we had was visual cues.
Yep.
And we could use science, observations, measurements. That's it. Now we got DNA. But thank God we do have the foundational methodology of counting anal fin rays, counting the lateral line scales, looking at that little tick mark above the eye of the female notho. So if you could kind of go into the nuance of like how and why it's important to really, really pay attention to your fish. And then we get the intimidation factor away, like learning what these terminologies really mean. Like
Definitely.
On a base level.
So with the majority of killifish, they don't have a common name. And so a lot of times, even to like myself, I don't read Latin. I've never taken a Latin class. And so you'll see like this really long name, this really long Latin name that looks intimidating. And still to this day, I'll be talking to like an old school fish keeper and I'll pronounce it. He's like, that's not how you say it. I'm like, okay, well, how you say it?
Tomato, potato. That's what I always say.
And 9 times out of 10, they're very polite about it. But it's a common language, that's why we have species and genus names. So we all know what we're all talking about. I could talk to a German killifish keeper and he would know that I'm talking about
that fish,
and that's the issue with common names. Cause like you'll, and to this day, like I'll look on like, Facebook pages for different pet shops and like mom and pop pet shops. And they'll say, I have, red lyre tail. I don't know what that is.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, and because like that just
people get so mad at me when I be like that because I don't call them common names no more. I call them store names because that's the only damn place you see them.
Yeah,
is the store, and it's like it's misleading, and it does cause a lot of confusion because you can't take care of something the proper way if you don't know what the hell you got.
Exactly, and a lot of times like you'll Google like the lyrefish,
lyre-tail
killifish.
That's like 35 different fish.
Yep.
That all look alike, plus or minus where the hell the red is. Or the green, or the yellow,
and especially like getting in the hobby like that. There's nothing wrong with like with not knowing exactly what the name is, but it will give you the best information possible to learn that name, and you can search for that name and then continue on with your pursuit of trying to figure out how to raise it.
It's good you mentioned that because I was telling Jorge about papers, and so I got those Poro Panchats. Rincarelli. So it's Wrangle's lampi. And the closest one that y'all can picture it is if you want to Google the Norman's lampi. And that's about the closest to what I have now. So the only thing that you can find on these fish is in German, Dutch, and French. And because of Latin names, I was able to get that research. And because we got Google Translate in 2023, I was able to read it, but I can read French and Spanish anyway, but that's a moot point. The research papers are important because it dispels all the confusion, and it's more prevalent in the plant world than fish because you can make up some cool names for plant. Like when Boost hit, it was like that with Boost, and it reminded me of a weed because they would just be making up crazy ass names like Godzilla, Skeleton King, Cookie Monster, just crazy shit. And it's like that ooh factor. Next thing you know, you spent $60 for a dime-sized portion of something that you're going to kill as soon as you put it in your tank. It just take a while. And because of taxonomy, aka the rules, if you will, all it is about having a consensual agreement to go off of. It's not personal. Ain't nobody trying to attack nobody. And sometimes, unfortunately, I get misunderstood when I'm trying to explain it because I just want people to be successful. And being able to go out on them on a limb and say, hey, what's that? Or like if somebody say, that's not how you say that. Like rather than get butthurt, you know, like the humility factor of, well, it is what it is. I just want to learn. So let's go into natives real quick.
Definitely.
And if you want to touch on the brackish, and if ain't nobody got nothing, we can wrap it up. It's depending on what Jorge's talking about. Here go the lamp eyes right here, y'all. And the wrangle is not as plain. It has striations, and this is all going off of the description. There's hardly there are no pictures. If anybody can find a picture of that fish, DM it to me on Instagram. There's nothing on the internet. The only thing on the internet about them is they are hard to keep in the hobby. That was written in 1996, so I call it BS. I'm an above average human being. I got mine living now. They're fried. Like, this is the most delicate stage to bring them up in. Fingers crossed, I'm damn near out of the weeds.
And one more important fact about like taxonomy is it kind of gives you a rule of thumb if you can keep something together.
Right.
You know, because if something's in the same genus,
they're gonna hybridize.
They're gonna hybridize, and so you know you wouldn't want to keep two species, you know, same genus, different species in the same tank, because they will hybridize, and hybridization in the killifish hobby is the biggest taboo.
Yeah, it's a no.
In the hobby, and it's
like putting a P82 with like a Messiah.
Yeah.
What is that?
Gardner.
Yeah, they're both Gardner eyes. What is it, 13? That's 13, 15, ain't it? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't do that.
No.
They're going to hybridize, and it's no bueno.
Yeah. And it definitely has happened to me in the past, because just like we were saying previously, like a lot of the females look the same.
Mm-hmm.
I've hatched out fish that I thought, you know, were of one species. And then as they developed, it's like, wait a second, these aren't right. And while the fish was beautiful, you know, it's in a community tank that I do nothing with but add, you know, coals to. And
you can't even post it on the internet or nothing, because people
internet.
like me with the eye, we're gonna be on your ass.
Yeah.
Man, it ain't fish police, and it's like, bruh, what is that? Because we want to know, what is that? And it's like, okay.
Yeah, so it's incredibly important to know where those fish are in terms of the taxonomic tree.
That's true.
To ensure that you don't have any hybridization. You can, add to a community tank if you want, but just be aware of what you're doing.
Right. And I think, like, what I would do if I was just, if you got the time, take a master class, a free master class on the internet, like a Taxonomy 101, right? So if I say the word Posiliate, automatically everybody thinks about the live bearing, the viviparous fish. But if I tell you that these Poropanchex rancorelli are actually Posiliates, it's going to confuse a lot of people. But if you look at their taxonomy, when you do the wheel, the spiral one, that's taxa. It is, in essence, it is classified as a Posiliate. So that's like how you kind of break some of these misconceptions about stuff, so you can be successful at what you want to do. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just go learn.
And ask questions.
Yeah, ask questions, you know.
There's plenty of people out there that are more than willing to share information with anyone and everyone. I think that's the worst thing you do is think that you've learned it all, because there's still plenty of stuff to learn out there. Yeah. I know I'm still learning.
It's always changing too. Yeah. We just talked about that.
The Shelly eye?
Yeah, and then too, like I was talking about how you don't sit on your laurels, you don't sit on your knowledge, because the books you read 20 years ago literally was that. They was 20 years ago. And stuff changes. And look, biologists, ichthyologists, botanists, all the ists, we kind of megalomaniacs with a God complex. I'm not gonna lie. We want our names on some shit. I want fish named after me. I want plants named after me. Wouldn't mind a mushroom. And if they could find like a tardigrade or something like that, that'd be cool too. Because them some tough little bastards. But because of that, everything is constantly changing. Like now I gotta go back and change all my what used to be Hemichromis exul videos to Rubra chromacatum. That's the 1933 moniker for it. But per EAS catalog of organisms, it is now verified and is validated current per 2023 Ruber chromacatum exup. There's a loophole dye / cereje is also back to Ruber chromacatum as well. FYI. So all them people with that, yeah, they need to change it. It ain't that big of a deal because we still recognize it. Synonyms exist, but you always want to stay on the most current rendition as possible to avoid everything we just talked about. What you got?
I know.
Go ahead.
I have something real quick. I know that you guys kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the conversation before I told you to put a pin on it. But Devin, could you kind of explain to the audience what are some of the benefits of being able to attend an event like Teiko or Sake? What are some of the things that they could expect of attending one of these events? What could they probably walk away learning from these events?
Well, from my experience, they're very welcoming because the majority of killifish keepers are old dudes. Like they're getting on in their years, and sorry, the dogs are going crazy. They're getting on the years, and they want to share what they know with the next generation, so they can continue the hobby and continue those fish in the hobby. And so they're very welcoming and understanding to any and all questions. And additionally, it gives you an opportunity to buy really nice fish and see really nice fish for really inexpensive
reasonable price
amount. Like I know we walked away with several nice pairs of fish.
Don't say how much.
For relatively cheap, a lot less than what you would pay for on Aquabit or something like that. But it also gives you an opportunity to network with other people. Like I was saying earlier, how I had a species of Northo that I lost, and I gave it to another gentleman with the hope that he would continue them. And I lost mine, and I was able to get them back and continue my line. So it gives you an opportunity to meet with other like-minded individuals that want nothing more than to continue the hobby as it is, and want nothing more to prolong these species. Because a lot of times, in a lot of cases, they're endangered or almost extinct in the wild, which is a huge shame. So who knows, maybe 10 years from now, they may want to introduce them back into the wild, and they would have to get them from us, which is what we want. We want to safeguard, the beauty and the nature of the world. And it seems like sometimes some entities don't want that. They want to play out a secret, or they don't want to share their country's beauty with the outside world, when we want nothing more than to keep it safe and continue it and share it with people that appreciate it.
Right. There's a lot of stuff swimming right now in 2023 because of the hobby. And one of our episodes, the episode we had Dr. Anthony on the show, he alluded to it. It's hobbyists that we're raising these fish. We're seeing the nuances. We're observing their behaviors. We actually do more in depth than actual researchers do, because to them, it's just a research specimen. With us, the kind of pets, it's a project. Yeah. That's the easiest way to say it. So with that part right there, the endangered fish, the Cares fish, you alluded to Brazil being closed off for Killi's. How can the people join? What do they do? Yeah. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, so I have an Instagram, which is the Killi Shack. But you can also join the American Killifish Association. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $25.
It's 35 now.
35?
Yeah,
35.
And you can do 5 years, like $100-something.
Yep, a year, and you get access to all information online. They have a nice website with a bunch of different resources. You get a free pair of fish.
Yeah.
And
you can't beat it.
Great. Yeah.
The one thing that I have noticed, because these organizations go way back. I mean, they're many years that they've been involved. But one of the things that I've noticed is they've been very slow to take advantage of social media, and that's one of the things where I encourage people that are, that have that ability to try to get involved. Maybe not necessarily directly with them, but like that's why when I went to Sake, I really was pushing to try to advertise it as much as possible because they're really losing out on the free advertisement you can get through social media and just the posting and the sharing. It's so funny because it's still a lot of the flyers and all that stuff are still printed on paper when they could just be digitally made and distributed to everybody. But that is just the changing of the guard. That's what Devin was talking about.
Yeah.
The younger people that are coming into these associations, they can bring those fresh ideas to be able to expand this and actually get it out to more people. But that's just kind of our responsibility as newcomers. And I don't really consider myself because I'm on the older end of that group. But I know there's young cats like Coral, like Ian from Atkins Aquatics. These young generation kids that are there, and I call them kids because they could be my children.
I'm definitely a kid still.
Yeah. They're the ones that grew up with this being their day-to-day interaction is being able to use these medias, and I really do encourage them. I really do encourage them to get involved because you could do so much for the hobby because you have that ability to be able to present it to a whole different audience that's not aware of it.
Right. And you know what I've noticed too, and y'all both touching on it, is it's the social part, going out there, interacting with people. And it's funny because it's a tight-knit community. When Jorge was at Sake, we got some AKA members in Houston that I know, like personally, and I already knew what they asked is how much they done spent before they even got back on the plane to come to Texas. And when I saw them at Taco the weekend that they had it, it was cool to be able to talk a little shit, you know?
Well, what happened was I told Steve, dude, there was a guy that came out here from your guys' neck of the woods, and he was outbeat. I mean, he would not let himself get outbeat. And he goes, "What was his name?" And I told him, he goes, "Yeah, I know who that is." Yeah. So it's
like
really,
I'm country. I gotta describe people. Like, what he look like? Okay, yeah, he got that right there too. Yeah, that's him. That's him. So,
but what I was getting at is that, and I've seen this, especially with this the American Live Bears Association. They travel well, and what I mean is you'll have people that travel from California to Houston for an event like this, and in Chicago when they have it, you have people from all over the country that travel to these events. So it's not uncommon to attend one of these meetings and get to know people from other parts of the country because it's such a niche community that they go everywhere. It's these events are like their mini versions of what we consider like an aquashella, but it's more species oriented.
Aquashella is like late to the party, low key.
But what I'm getting at is just trying to perspective for people that have never attended one of these events, that they understand, but it's obviously going to be a smaller scale because it's more of a niche. Where Aquashella caters to it caters to the entire community through salt and all these other stuff. This is more, live bears or killifish or whatever. But it's in essence, it's you get people from all over the country coming to these events. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, and another plus into what Jorge was saying is it is small. And I know a lot of us fish keepers is weird, bro. We don't like people. And because it's so small, everybody that's there don't like people either, but we'll tolerate each other because we love to fish way more than we hate people. And so for like you introverts and stuff that say, "No, I ain't gonna go. I don't want to go." Like me, I'm really not too crazy about going to Aquashella because I got PTSD. I can't do the crowds no more. I'm hyper vigilant. But going to a small little gathering like that, and it's funny because we was talking about this shit at Taco. I was like, "Bro, you a weirdo like me? To where you like hyper vigilant, you always gotta like sit at the back and case the room out and like we finna go like frog leap and shit and kick down a door." But if you're an introvert like that, these little events are cool. You might not rock with everybody there, but the 2-3 people that you do click with, that's who you were supposed to click with anyway. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth. And I do really, invite y'all to go explore that. Get on the internet and do some Googling. The same amount of money Y'all be giving these YouTubers for a quick little nut, the instant gratification of a shout out. You can actually spend less money, join something substantial, and get nourishment, get substance. And I really, really encourage that. Ain't nothing wrong with YouTube memberships, I guess, but what do you get from it other than, hey, I like you, and some metaverse digital stickers, you know, like some stuff that they giving away that they got free from a sponsor anyway. Like, it's just perspective. I'm not shitting on nobody. I'm just articulating. I'm saying what y'all scared to damn say. The same money y'all spend on that shit, y'all could put into any pick what fish you like. ACA was just in Wisconsin. Makoji and them was there. Everybody pulled up. That's a plane ticket. And unlike Aquashella, you ain't gotta wait 3 times a year, 2 times. It's something going on everywhere all the time. Every 12 months out the year, I promise you can find something somewhere. And the same effort to jump on the plane, you could do it. That's all I got. Seriously, you could do it. That's literally it. Do it. I want to end positive. You couldn't do it.
Yeah. So, you know, I really, I'm very thankful for you taking the time out of your day to provide us with this information. Hey, Alcabos. And, you know, I strongly encourage people that if they've never attended any of these meetings, at least do it once. Do it once. You'll be amazed at the kind of fish that'll come across. And don't go thinking that the only thing you're going to see is killifish, because you're going to come across fish you never expected to see. And that's what's so neat about it, because it could be you know, a killifish club, but not, you know, like everybody else. We don't just keep that one species. Yeah, we keep other fish too, and you know, and it's a good opportunity to sell some of those fish. So I know when I went to Sake, I kept sending Steve pictures, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta get those." No, you gotta get those. But I wasn't going.
He was like, "Man, I should have got them."
Well, a lot of it was the hesitation because of the lack of understanding of the species. And I didn't want to be the compulsive buyer, because we preach that don't be compulsive. Try to do your research, do the right thing by the fish. And I really practiced that as much as I wanted to buy almost half.
I'm glad you said that, Jorge. This is intrinsic with these events, okay? We care more about the fish than we do money. You not bidding on nothing that you can't take care of. Most people, it's people that'll bid on something in the heat of the moment, then figure out what it is, and they won't leave the show with that fish. They'll be like, "Hey, I can't take care of this shit. I ain't set up for it. I don't feel like learning it. If you can run it right now, here, go ahead. But like, don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. Don't trip." And it's because we care more about the damn fish than the money. And it's to where if you bid on something that you're curious about, you're ready to take that step, and it's there, it's in your price bracket, go and bid on it. And then guess what? You at the best place you could be to ask questions, and they gonna hit you up because they want to make sure you don't kill these specific ones you just bought. They're gonna DM you, they're gonna hit you up like, "How the fish doing?" And that's the whole point of the socialization. When I say we trying to do the internet right, putting social back into social media, because it's not the money, it's the fish.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know this is probably the longest live stream we've done. It's not even our regular live stream day, but I don't want to keep people any longer than they need to be here. But I do want to say thank you, Devin, for being here with us. Hopefully, I know there's so much more information out there. We'll definitely have to revisit this topic, because I've talked to Steve that we need to do something a little bit more in depth on the killifish. And we would love to have you as our guest when we do that, because obviously your knowledge is way above and beyond what we're doing, just because you're keeping them on a day-to-day basis. And with that said, I don't know, do you have anything else you want to add, Steve?
No, unless you want to put your website out there for the people. If y'all want to Are you shipping fish now? Is it too high?
Yes.
Like,
So at the moment, I'm not shipping fish. Once it drops down below 90 here in Texas, I'll start shipping fish. But just the KilliShack.com.
KilliShack.com. Y'all go check it out. Browse around.
Yeah, I think
And
Jay had already posted up the link.
Yeah, temps drop.
So what are your shipping seasons? What do you do from past the summer and all year, or is there 2 periods in the year where you don't ship? How does your operation work?
So generally, when the temperature is above freezing and below melting, so above 32, I'll ship, and below around 100, I'll ship. So just really depending on the temperature. Probably start shipping up again, hopefully next month, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
There you go. Jay just put up the link right there for us too. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
And they can follow you on Instagram also under the Killi Shack.
Exactly. And if you have any questions, please, I'm an open book. I love sharing.
Oh yeah, he is. I definitely know that for a fact because, like I said, without even knowing him, I reached out trying to get information in those opinions Mendos, and he pointed me in the right direction. So he's really just a click away.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yep.
We're gonna Steve and I will be discussing how the event went from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And any other questions that you guys might have from the stream today, we might be available tomorrow to answer some of those questions. With that being said, thank you. Any parting words for you, gentlemen?
No, man. Thank you guys for rocking with us. It was kind of haphazard, but it actually worked out better that way. And
Not really.
have a good one, man. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Not really, but yeah.
It did. Everybody said it did.
Everybody. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.